Clare, now chair of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation. To my far left is John Gregory, Jeff Broadleib, myself, and new board member Jane Clare. And as we have quorum, I'm going to ask that and move that we officially open tonight's meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so a few announcements because there are a few announcements. As you can see, I'm now sitting center square, and that's a new move here for the Village of Southampton. Those of you who were in our meeting in December heard from Jeff Broadleib that after long service and 2 years as chair, he is asked to rotate out his chair, and in that rotation, I rotated in his chair. But I would be remiss not to talk about Jeff for just a minute. We've often heard people say that those are big shoes to fill.
Small.
And I will say, in Jeff's case, they are in fact big shoes to fill. The good news that I have is those big shoes are still sitting under the desk to my right. So I do have the privilege and the pleasure of counsel from Jeff. Jeff has served for 7 years on this board and the last 2 as chairs, and has agreed to continue serving on the board, which I think the village owes him a debt of gratitude for his service. I also think if I can do this job with half the dignity and half the gentlemanliness of which Jeff has done this job, then I will have been successful. So I would be remiss if I didn't personally thank him for his advice and counsel the last 2 years, and thank him on behalf of the village for being here.
Very kind of you and everyone else. Thank you very much.
The second thing you'll notice tonight is who is not here, which is Sarah Latham. After long service with the village, part of her career as our historic consultant and many years serving on the board, Sarah tendered her resignation in December and has decided to step out and rotate out of board service. I will tell you that her knowledge and her expertise in historic preservation or passion for the village will be missed. And I also want to publicly thank Sarah for all the hard work that she's put in the village as well. Which brings me to Jane, our new board member. Jane comes to us from the planning board. We used her for 6 years?
Oh, no, 5.
5 years on the planning board, and we're very lucky to have Jane with us. She has long history in the direction of the village and the planning of the village, and she understands both from a citizen standpoint what we're looking for as a village, and has some background in some of the projects that will now come in front of us here as the board. So welcome, we're very glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I am joined tonight by Charles Certain running our videographer in the back. We should have Alex Wallach. Alex Wallach should be our planning commissioner. I'm sorry, our director of planning. Alice Cooley, who is our counsel, is with us tonight. So we've got a full board and ready to go. And I'd also like to thank Emma, who is operating tonight as our recording secretary. So that's our entire group. As we head into the year, a couple of new things. You probably saw it in the agenda. We are asking that everyone who's going to present to the board be prepared to present digitally from your own laptop, your own plans going forward versus relying on the village to put them up for you. First of all, you know your plans better than we do, and it's more efficient, and also allows the meetings to go faster, and we think it's a better way to give you the opportunity to present. The last thing I'd like to remind before we kick off tonight is that, doing this job is, it's time consuming. We get a stack of papers about this big every 2 weeks, and our job, our responsibility is to go through all the paperwork to understand what the projects that all you have are in front of us. If we are not aware of a project, it's our job to drive around the village and walk onto those properties and understand them. So we do have a deadline here of noon on Thursday for all materials prior to a Monday meeting, and it's not an arbitrary date for my board members and I to really go through. We require time to go through all this paperwork to understand both the projects that you're asking us to talk about, potential impact on neighbors, what they look like on the street, and really have done our homework to serve you best. So understand that that's why that noon deadline is firm. Because I think it allows us to operate a little more efficiently as a board. And the second thing, the last thing I will say is we have also spent, and this was a Sarah project, a little bit of time updating the checklist of what constitutes a full file to come in front of the board. When you apply for the board, the checklist is there, and I believe, Alex, we have an updated version of that. It's either up now or going up on the village website.
Yep, it'll be uploaded very shortly this week.
Great, so I just ask you to take a look at that, because in order to do our job, we do require surveys and elevations and photographs to really understand and serve you best. So with all those announcements out of the way, I'm going to move on to the agenda. And the first thing on our agenda tonight is to approve the minutes from both November 14th and December 12th. So I'm going to ask my fellow board members, did you have time to review? Have your comments been heard? And did you have any additions or subtractions? I know you were here. So.
Abstain.
Okay. So I'm going to move we accept the minutes from November 14th and the minutes from December 12th. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Next up, we have some written decisions, so I'm going to turn to council. Before I do that, one question for council. I believe there were some questions. Do you have all the affidavits you need for tonight, or are you still missing some?
I'm missing a few. I assume that they're here. One is for Kevin Bone, 25 Willow Street. Okay, no takers on that. The other is for 92 Cooper's Neck Lane. I assume you had those, Melissa.
There is a hand.
Oh, okay. 34, okay, thank you.
Do
Did
it.
it go away?
I guess it went away, yeah.
Okay.
The hand is up, the hand is down. Okay.
Maria Danzillo, 101 Old Town Road. Claire and David Kershey, 37 Pheasant Close.
Do you have the
And-
affidavits?
We're good. We just knocked 3 items off the agenda. That's
And Sean Strickland, 242 Toilsome. Huh,
Just
okay.
everyone understand, if we don't have them, then we can't take jurisdiction. If we can't take jurisdiction, it can't be discussed in tonight's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out, I believe 37 Pheasant Close was heard by the board before, so the board may already have jurisdiction on that one.
Yeah, Alex, I had relocated this on the agenda back up to carryover matters, and it was moved back down, so I assumed it was being renoticed.
It was renoticed. I'm not sure why. I don't think it needed to be, but it did appear in the notice for this meeting, having come back from the Board of Zoning Appeals. But I believe this board has taken jurisdiction over that case before.
Okay, so for jurisdictional purposes, I'm okay with us hearing it?
Okay?
That's it.
Okay. Then let's go to our first written decision, which is the written decision for 765 Hill Street.
Okay, so this is an amendment to a prior, excuse me, certificate of appropriateness for a partial demolition and restoration of an existing historic structure and the construction of a residence at the premises. There's a long history. I won't go through it. If anyone wants to read it, they're welcome to. But there was a prior certificate of appropriateness granted in April 12th, 2021. This one is for the new residence and also some minor changes to the historic asset, which is no longer being relocated. And after some design changes, the board found that the partial demolition restoration of the existing structure and construction of the new dwelling to be appropriate for the historic district.
Does anyone have any other questions on this one?
nope.
Okay, so then I'm going to move we accept the written decision for the certificate of appropriateness for 765 Hill Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is the written decision for 7 Gin Lane.
Okay.
Next up is 7 Gin Lane.
Yep. So this was a certificate of appropriateness to construct a 2-story dwelling with an attached garage. After seeing the outline of the footprint and shrouding depicted on site, the board found the overall design to be appropriate in terms of mass and scale. And with a minor change to the bell cast tower, found it to be harmonious.
Board members, any questions?
No?
Then I'm going to move we accept the written decision for certificate of appropriateness for By the Hedge LLC, 7 Gin Lane. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up is the estate of Linda Curtis at 376 First Neck Lane for the demolition of a single-family dwelling.
The owner applied to the board for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing single-family dwelling and garage. The board found that the structures were intact and the historic consultant recommended that the house be restored. However, a thorough investigation revealed that the property is flag lot setback 440 feet from First Neck Lane, is obscured completely from First Neck Lane by a house, other improvements cited between the subject lot and First Neck Lane with a high hedge. There are historic photos that reveal the structure was once visible from Gin Lane across Lake Agawam, but the structures and improvements on the lot situated between the subject lot and Lake Agawam currently obscure the view of the house from Gin Lane as well. And because it is not visible from a public street, right-of-way, or park, or open to the public, the board found that they lacked the jurisdiction necessary to make a determination on a certificate of appropriateness for demolition.
Any further questions, board members?
No.
Any questions? Then I'm going to move, and I'm going to say I'm going to move sadly, that we accept the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the structure at 376 First Neck Lane.
It's not a certificate of appropriateness.
Then I move that we
You're gonna
approve
adopt
the written decision.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
To take down 376 First Neck Lane. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Okay. Here you go again, John.
John, next up is 199 Cooper's Neck Lane for the relocation of a parking court, removal of a pool house, and landscaping.
You took the words right out of my mouth. The board found them all to be appropriate and in fact an improvement over what's existing.
Any questions, board members?
Nope.
Then I'm going to move we accept the written decision for 199 Cooper's Neck Lane LLC. 199 Cooper's Neck Lane. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. We've got a lot with you tonight. Next up is Martin and Kristen Siegel at 104 Post Crossing.
This was for a certificate of appropriateness to partially, oh wait, I'm sorry, is it post-crossing?
This is Post Crossing.
Okay, that was right, another one.
It's the shed with bathroom.
Construct a garden shed with a bathroom. There were some design changes made. The board ultimately found that it was appropriate, but did not want to approve the proposed arborvitae, so they're approved, but not on the condition that the proposed arborvitae no longer be proposed.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have a question of council, a comment first. It was brought to our attention, and it was pretty obvious when one drove down Post Lane that 2 significant trees were removed. And not only does it violate, in my mind, the spirit and the intent of renovations and changes within the historic district, but I do recall that there was discussion, as is in the written decision, about the arborvitae. Now, granted, that's on the other side of the property, but historic trees are to be preserved. So I'm hesitant to vote on it now this evening without looking into this a little bit further.
Okay. Was there a question in there for me?
Can I do that?
Well, I mean, I would defer to the chair on how he wants to proceed. My view is that, I saw the letter. It does sound like there may very well have been a violation, but I don't see that it was a part of this plan. If the board wants to hold it in abeyance, we would go beyond our 30-day time limitation.
Yeah. I just, and this may be a poor metaphor, I don't know how it's right to, no, I won't use it, to do something that's not in the spirit with one hand and then ask for permission of approval on the other hand.
I understand.
So I'm troubled by it. I'm not inclined to vote on it this evening. I'd like to check into it further.
Well, if that's how the chair wants to proceed, I would advise you to perhaps vote on reopening the record.
I'm sorry?
I would advise you to vote on reopening the record. If we're gonna hear about these trees, they're not before us right now. We don't have any testimony on them. The record is closed.
Here's what I think. I think they've operated well outside the spirit of operation in the historic district, and also in the spirit of being a good neighbor to the people that surround them. I believe that it probably is an issue more with the village, and it is an issue between the neighbors, but I don't believe it's an issue over which we have jurisdiction, because it was not part of a landscape plan or anything presented to the ARB, and it was not subject to the decision to approve the now shed with pool house. The trees and the landscape plan was not annexed as part of that approval outside a discussion about arborvitae between the neighboring lines. Therefore, I don't actually think we have the jurisdiction to reopen because it didn't come, the trees in the front yard landscape plan did not come in front of us as part of the discussion that we had over the backyard addition of a shed.
I mean, it
So-
may very well be that a certificate of appropriateness was required for the removal of those trees and that a violation has occurred.
I believe
But it
that to
wasn't
be
part
true,
of-
but I
But
believe
it
that's
wasn't a part of
an
this.
issue for the village, not an
And,
issue
you know,
for this
right now, we're
board.
talking about an application that the record is closed and.
So the remedy is to file a complaint in regard to that removal.
Well,
and-
for, you know, this board, I think, should adopt this determination tonight. That's what I think.
Okay.
I believe we need to adopt this determination tonight, but I would go on record saying I think the neighbors are right about the issue with the tree, and I think it needs to be, I would encourage them to take it to the village and pursue it from that perspective, because while it's not in the jurisdiction of ARB, in this case, I think the actual removal of those trees was incorrect.
Okay, all right.
Well, I think just by the mere fact that we brought it up, it is being brought to the building department's attention.
Okay.
We
So
surely will.
then I'm going to vote,
Good
we
luck with
accept
that.
the written decision for 104 Post Crossing for the shed and bathroom.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
John, you want
Second.
to? Okay, and I'll defer to
Okay.
the chair. So,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Next on the list is 43 Hill Street, AKA the Southampton Theater, for local landmark designation.
So the board, on its own application, proposed to designate the property known as 43 Hill Street, owned by Southold Properties. The board conducted several hearings on this and had a significant report prepared by their historic consultant. The board decided that the theater possesses special character of historic and aesthetic interest and value as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history of the village of Southampton, and has long been a part of the culture and social history of the village, while being an integral part of the appearance of Hill Street, pursuant to Section 65-3A1 of the Southampton Village Code, and that the Southampton Theater embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style, as that it's an important example of Adamesque style pursuant to 65-3A3 of the Southampton Village Code. And the board would like to designate the building located at 43 Hill Street a historic landmark pursuant to the code section 65-3.
Board members, any discussion?
Nope.
Then I move that we accept the written decision to landmark the Southampton Theater at 43 Hill Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up is the demolition evaluation for Wall Street Partners at 54 Walnut Street.
We've got one more decision.
Which one?
260
Did I skip one?
261st Neck?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Did I skip it?
yeah.
Oh,
First
sorry.
Pasture LLC.
Oh, there you go. I skipped it. Okay.
So this is First Pasture LLC, 260 First Neck Lane. The owner applied to the board for a certificate of appropriateness to partially demolish an existing porch and construct exterior alterations to an existing two-story house. For the most part, the alterations would not be visible from the street, but would be visible from the east. The board found the alteration to be appropriate, noted that the alteration is to an extension and not a change to the historic fabric of the existing dwelling.
Board members, any discussion?
No?
What's
I'm good.
show the street address?
Oh,
Okay, so then I move we accept the written decision for 260 First Neck Lane. Do I have a second?
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay.
Okay.
I think I have an
I'm
open
sorry to
agenda.
interrupt. I just wanted to point out the video feed seems to have cut off.
Sage? We
Great.
good? Okay. All right, then we now will move on to the demolition evaluation for Walnut Street, 54 Walnut Street, Walnut Street Partners.
Good evening. For the applicant, John Bennett and Reed, 212 Windmill Lane, Southampton, New York, and I'm hoping that you can let in George Thomas and Susan Snyder from Civic Visions. They'll be presenting via Zoom. Oh, and Bailey Larkin, another attorney from my office, is with us. Great. George, Susan, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, good.
We're going to share our screen.
Perfect. Well, I'm just going to give some short introduction. We were last here in December discussing a request for a demolition,
That sounds so long ago.
and it does seem long ago. By correspondence dated December 5, we had also submitted a report prepared by Civic Visions. And George and Susan are here to talk about that tonight, and no new information, just to present it to you. I just want to talk to you a little bit about Civic Visions before they start their presentation. Civic Visions is a research and consulting firm that practices across the U.S. with particular focus on New York City and its suburbs in Philadelphia. It has 45 years of experience preparing historic site surveys and evaluating sites for historic significances with nearly 100 National Register individuals and district listings. George Thomas is an architectural and cultural historian. He has a doctorate in art history from the University of Pennsylvania and is the author of 10 books, dozens of articles, and co-founded with James Marston Fitch in 1978 the Preservation Program at Penn. Susan Niagara Snyder is a registered architect and has taught design studios and seminars for more than 25 years at the University of Pennsylvania. She's the author of numerous articles exploring the forces of consumption on urban form. Together they serve as directors of the Critical Conservation Program at Harvard University's Graduate School of Design, Master of Design Studies program from 2011 until the end of the program in 2022. At the request of the owner of 54 Walnut Street, George and Susan have prepared an evaluation of the subject property that not only addresses the specific criteria within the code, but I must say, and I don't say this lightly, conclusively rebuts essentially every finding included in the historic analysis that was prepared at the request of this board. Civic Visions has concluded that the home at 54 Walnut Street does not meet any of the individual criteria for landmarking, and a demolition permit should issue. One more thing before I turn the presentation over to George and to Susan. It's been my mantra throughout this, and I don't think there's really anywhere getting around it, assuming for the purposes of argument that this Haynes figure is a historic figure, which I think is an enormous stretch. Would make just about every builder in Southampton, old-time builder or new-time builder, a historic figure. But assuming for the purposes of argument that he was, which he's not, didn't design it, we've shown that conclusively, never lived there, shown that conclusively, owned it for 2 years. Nothing historic ever happened at the house. By even assuming he was a historic figure, by him or any other historic figure. I think that's the beginning and the end of it. But Susan and George will give you this and more in detail. And again, this is them presenting their report. Thank you.
Thank you. Civic Visions reviewed the June 5th, 2022 Architectural Review Board demolition evaluation for 54 Walnut Street and the 24 June report, quote, 54 Walnut Street, Southampton Village, the Havens Block, and evaluated the significance of the house in Southampton Village. We did this by understanding a detailed search for documents about the property, including historic maps, newspaper articles, historical accounts, and chains of title. We did additional research, including files from the Cultural Resource Information System of New York and documents in the Rogers Memorial Library in Southampton. A site visit with the engineer was made to photograph and assess the existing conditions and context. The report on, quote, 54 Walnut Street, Southampton Village, the Havens Block, included assertions not backed up by facts, leading to unsupported conclusions based on often misunderstood and incorrect data. Our review that you have provides fact-based evidence from actual newspaper articles, historical accounts, census data, and deeds that counter the errant conclusions of the report. The facts we have assembled provide evidence that rejects the claims in the property evaluation and supports a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of 54 Walnut Street. The following slides summarize what we will cover later in detail.
"54 Walnut Street is not a, quote, listed historic asset and is not located in a village historic district. The building itself is so altered that 2/3 is not original. It lacks integrity, making it unsuitable for preservation. 54 Walnut was designed without style and is not Queen Anne or any other style. Contrary to the assertions of the town report, 54 Walnut Street was never a boarding house, nor was it built as multifamily housing. As you will see, A.M. Havens had nothing to do with the design or making of the building and did not live in the building. In fact, it was the work of another builder who sold the house to Havens. The completed house was purchased by Havens as a short-term real estate venture. Havens himself was a minor player in the local building world, a hired hand for the first half of his career, and only later took on the contractor role. The Havens family was one of numerous Southampton families buying, subdividing, and selling property. Their work has no special character that sets it apart. Finally, we will point out an issue that is not visible from the street, but should be known to the board. The building has severe structural deficiencies, largely due to the inadequacies of the construction of the additions that undermine the building. To summarize our introduction, this building and the people around it do not meet any of the significance criteria of the Historic Review. These standards come out of the National Register standards and demand superlatives. The design character of 54 Walnut must be special, whether historic or aesthetic. Persons associated with 54 Walnut have to do more than exist. They must have made a substantial contribution to the history of the village. The design characteristics must be distinguishing characteristics of the style, that is, the characteristics by which we recognize the style. And finally, 54 Walnut must be more than simply a work of a designer. The work has to have significantly influenced the town, so clearly that we would recognize the designer.
Just a few words before George and Susan continue their report in terms of the standard. The core of this house, we talked about a core of the house and then some additions. Well, indeed, the core of the house is not worthy of preservation. Havens, assuming he rises to some historic level, which I find fanciful, didn't design, live in, or own for more than 2 years this house. Nothing historic that he did, assuming he was a historic figure, which is not, took place in the house. Owned it for 2 years before he sold it. The Spanberg report is full of legal and factual leaps that don't hold together. The report tries to paste together a contributing structure by pieces of supposition, unfounded, and indeed now unproven leaps and claims that have no nexus to the categories required for significance. Statements in the report such as "in all likelihood" are simply not allowed to create a rational basis for legal actions. If you like the house, I understand that. That's a personal like. No one can argue about that. But your preservation has to be grounded in a factual nexus. Anything else is arbitrary and capricious. The reason we have rules and laws is so that people can predict with reasonable certainty government action. Anything else is simply rule by diktat. Civil Provisions has reviewed the specific standard that you as a board are bound by the code to address. You're making a decision based upon law, not a sense of place or anything else. And you're, of course, required to adhere to those standards. The home is not in the Village Historic District, doesn't meet any of the criteria for landmarking, and given the surrounding homes, it does not even have any historical context. As an aside, I was reviewing the architectural design guidelines for historic districts and landmarks. The Village Historic District, which again this property is not located in, has over 430 structures that are considered contributing. The village overall has nearly 475 contributing buildings within the 4 districts. This is not any of that. Interesting also, and I know there are different standards, but there are only 5 individually significant historic buildings located outside of the historic district, and it's a very high standard. It's the Captain Goodale House, the Ball Castle, Captain Goodale House at 300 Hampton Road, the Ball Castle at 143 Little Plains Road. That was before you, not some time ago, for some renovations. The Bowers Residence on Meadow Lane, Orchards, 155 Hill Street, which is beautiful, stunning. A true McKim, Mead, and White. I sometimes say that McKim, Mead, and White designed 20 buildings on the East End, and 100 of them are in Southampton. But this is an actual Orchards is, of course, the real deal. And of course, the wonderful Captain Mercator Cooper House, which until he passed away gave it to the before he gave it to the library was, of course, Mercator Kendrick's house. So again, not located in the Village Historic District. You're essentially trying to landmark this structure. It simply doesn't meet any of the criteria. And then that'll be my last interruption of George and Susan, unless there are any questions. Anyway, George, Susan?
Okay. In our evaluation of 54 Walnut, we did not find that it has special character. Rather, it's an undistinguished building. The date is most likely 1893 to 95. The likely builder of 54 Walnut Street, Robert Wood, is not identified as a figure who stands out in history. Far from embodying distinguishing characteristics of a style, 54 Walnut, in fact, has no style. And its builder, Robert Wood, did not significantly influence the period. As we demonstrate, 54 Walnut is a much altered building by a minor builder in no particular style. It is not part of an historic district, and it is massively altered, built as a single-family house, altered into multiple units, and those alterations have created significant damage to the structure that renders it inappropriate to preserve the building. How can we say that 54 Walnut does not meet the standards of the village regulatory framework? As John has said, first from your own records, it is not individually listed, and it is not in the historic district. Moreover, as you can see on the bottom of the slide, the context has been significantly altered. To the east is a new house, and to the west is a 5-car concrete garage. The building has a lack of architectural significance. Most critically, 54 Walnut has been so extensively altered as to have lost even the design integrity of an unimportant building. We can see the totality of the alterations in this sequence of slides. The original house consisted of a front portion with an inframing porch and a rear room. The Sanborn Atlas shows it as 2 stories, meaning that the attic was unsuitable for living. When it was acquired by Joseph Mickery in 1913, it was still as originally built, as seen in the 1916 Atlas. Mickery, to increase its rental capacity, added a large rear wing that covered the rear facade and removed the rear room, adding 1/3 to the volume. We can see from the census page that there are now 2 families living there. The vertical break in the facade, seen in the image below, shows the evidence of the doubling of the large volume and the covering of the rear wall. Prior to 1940, he made another large addition on the side and dramatically altered the roof, adding oversized dormers so that the attic could be used as rental space. This meant that by the 1940 census, the house contained 4 separate units. The new volumes were all textured shingle, abandoning the straightforward original clapboarding. Since then, the house has continued to grow and be enlarged with exterior decks and other structures extending the building footprint. The result of these alterations is a building whose facades and volumes have been so altered that the integrity of what had been a simple building is lost in a welter of volume and new material. As a much altered minor building, it does not achieve the required architectural significance.
The next question is one of architectural style. And as you will see, there is no evidence of the architectural style of this claim. It is claimed in the report that this is a Queen Anne style house. It most certainly is not. As you can see in this plate from an 1881 pattern book, the Queen Anne was a style that merged Renaissance and Gothic bits with a rich array of textures and details that were generally picked out in color. None of these features are apparent in 54 Walnut. The visual comparison of 54 Walnut with even modest Queen Anne cottages in the vicinity show how unstyled this house is. As you can see in the top images, 54 Walnut has no decorative beam ends, no textured shingles in the gable, no decorative verge boards lining the gable, nor, as you see in the bottom images, does it have the characteristic Queen Anne window sash or projecting bays, towers, and other volumes. A gable end toward the street with a porch is not Queen Anne. It would be more appropriate to term the building as having no style. The next question that was raised was that this was a boarding house and that boarding houses were an important building type that had disappeared. It is claimed that 54 Walnut has significance because it was built as a boarding house. It was not. Next. This claim is readily disproved. The 1900 census makes clear the difference between private residences and boarding houses. Boarding house residents are listed as boarders, and there are usually many of them. In addition, there is an owner and sometimes a servant or a cook. As seen in the upper portion of the census page, all of the houses on Walnut Street are clearly single-family houses, all with heads of families and usually a wife and children, while the bottom portion of the page shows a boarding house on Meeting House Lane with 17 boarders. As the census demonstrates, 54 Walnut has no long lists of boarders in any of its census records. 54 Walnut was not built as a boarding house, and it never served as one.
54 Walnut is not the example of the work of a designer whose work has influenced an age significantly. In fact, there is no documentary evidence that it is even the work of A.M. Havens. Comparing the dates in the chain of title and published records of mortgages with the October 1895 date of the published Sanborn fire insurance map, let me see if I can move this so you can see it. How's that? Okay. See the 1895 date there. This reveals a problem with attributing 54 Walnut to Havens. The property was purchased in 1893 by Robert Wood, who, a year and a half later, in April of 1895, took out a mortgage on the property. This probably occurred concurrently with his building the house. Second, Wood sold the property with the house in late August of 1895 to Arthur Havens, who, as recorded in the newspaper clipping at the bottom, paid off the mortgage when he purchased the property.
John, how much longer is this presentation? I'm going to ask that you, brevity, become your friend here. We're taking a lot of time.
Probably 10 or 15 minutes.
We don't have 10 or 15 minutes. Can you do what you can do in the next 3 to 5?
We already have it on.
We've already had your paperwork, and our job was to read it, and this is going very long. So if you could just
understand.
figure out how to wrap it up, that would be great.
Well, I understand. The issue is, this is facially it just doesn't meet any of the criteria, and I think it's important that the experts be.
But John, are
able
these
to
substantially
expand on
different
this.
than the arguments you made in the last meeting?
Excuse me?
Are these arguments
they're-
substantially
they're
different than what you
coming out
made in the
of-
last
They're coming
meeting?
out of these two very credentialed people's mouths.
I understand.
I understand that.
I'm going to just ask you
Okay.
if you can figure out how to give us the most salient facts in the next 3 to 5 minutes and then wrap up.
Okay, well, George and Susan, if you could try to do that as quickly as possible to accommodate the chairman and the board, that would be helpful. And then what we can do is, if it's okay with you, what we'll do is we'll just submit
Yeah,
the.
That'd be great, because some of this is redundant to what we heard in the last meeting, and it's redundant, and we have read all your paperwork,
Yes,
so.
but what
So I
we'll
would just,
also do is-
again, 3 to 5 minutes.
What we'll do is we'll submit the script as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay. George, Susan, if you could accommodate, that would be great.
Okay, we will try to do that. You can see that the discrepancy in dates is shown on this chronology, that it is really difficult to imagine that Wood would be able to build the house, buying the property, an empty lot in the late August, building the house and having the Sanborn survey it, go to New York and publish the thing and issue it in October. So it is very, very, very clear that Havens did not build the house on the site.
So again, that's important because one of the claims was that Havens designed and built the house.
It's in your
so
paperwork, I know.
Gone.
Okay. One of the other claims is that this is a Havens block, and we want to point out that, and based on this idea that the map of 1902 shows all of the Havens name, we want to point out that map is about property owner, not about residence. The three sites outlined in red here are all rented sites. Havens lived across the street, his mother lived with him, and all of these areas labeled Havens were occupied by other people. This is ownership.
And then just trying to truncate or move along. It's the Havens bought and sold property. They weren't designers. They weren't architects. They weren't.
I think we've already covered this
Yeah, we've
ad
covered it before,
nauseum.
and it's in your lengthy paperwork,
Is there
so we're
anything
aware.
new that we haven't addressed in the past 3 meetings on this?
Well, what we'll do is we'll submit the script. You have the report. George, Susan, I know it's difficult. You have a very thought-out presentation, but if you could summarize in the next minute or so the lack of any sort of architectural significance and the lack of any historic personage, that would be great. And then we'll submit the script.
Thank you.
And one of the critical points is that representations were made as to all the important work that he did in the town, including moving the parish mansion and so on. And what you see here is Samuel Parrish praising Joseph Miller for moving the parish house. And all the other buildings that he's associated with are designed by architects for the actual designers. So in that sense, Havens doesn't play a role in creating the architecture of the town. He's part of a building team.
And there's some mention of him having worked on Port of Missing Men, which is a wonderful John Russell Pope thing. He worked there. A lot of people work there. It's a beautiful place. I was there. I was lucky enough to be there last weekend. But it doesn't mean anything other than he was maybe a subcontractor or something like that. Had no help in the design of it or anything like that. It's just really by whole cloth, this report. But in any event, we'll submit the script. What's your pleasure? We'll submit the script. Do you have any further questions about this? Or
Let me turn it over to the board members. Do we have questions?
Well,
Or comments?
I have a couple of comments. There were a couple of things a few things that I picked up. You said that the house has been greatly altered. You mentioned that 2/3 of it have been altered, which then by the simple math, that means that 1/3 is still historic, or at least dates back to, John, let me finish,
Okay, sure.
please. Dates back to 1893. So there is some, at least, partial historic value, or at least elements that are intact. And then you mentioned that it has no style. And John, then you mentioned that any appellation of a style would be arbitrary. Well, a statement that it has no style is equally arbitrary, and I'll admit that it doesn't have consistent style, but there is a style. So I come back to one of the sections in the code, 65-3A1, which says that, and this has to do with designating landmarks, and which is the criteria that we apply for demolition or not, or approving a demolition or not. And it says possesses special character or historic or aesthetic interest or value as part of the culture, political, economic, or social history of the locality, region, state, or nation. That's pretty broad. Aesthetic interest, you said at one point,
No,
John.
it's actually not broad.
Well, it is. Aesthetic interest to the community. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not broad. Aesthetic interest to the community is represented to some extent by this board, and it's within our authority to apply judgment as to that aesthetic interest. Consultants can argue whether or not it's befitting of recognition to being true to that particular style, whether it's Queen Anne or anything else, but it can still nonetheless have aesthetic interest. And when I look at this house and the houses on that street, this house has aesthetic interest and value in terms of representing the village at that period of time. And so, and yes, all the other things, yes, it has been altered. So I wonder if there's a way of preserving that 1/3 that is historic, that does have aesthetic interest. And perhaps with creative builders, architects, historians, there's a way of perhaps not applying some Ptolemaic judgment to it so that we preserve that which is recognizable as having aesthetic interest, and perhaps building that which is practical in today's world.
All right, if I can respond, it's pure. It is with great respect, and you've done it artfully, but it is nothing more than bootstrap. That's all there is to it. You've assumed that it has historic interest, but it has to have historic interest not as you define it, but as you are constrained by the code. So the historic interest has to be keyed into something much, much more specific than it's a nice old house. Old just by itself doesn't do it. The core itself, again, it's another bootstrap argument. The core itself has to be proven as significant and as keyed into the criteria in the code. And it falls on its face. There's no, and the fact that there's no
Hey, John,
style.
I'm going to ask, move, I know.
I'm just trying to
I know,
respond, that's
I
all.
appreciate
Okay,
that, but I'm going to
thank
ask, in the interest of time, to move on to get comments from all the board members.
Okay.
John, or are you, I'm sorry. are you
No, that's fine.
No, I have to agree with Jeff that there are elements of this building that are worth saving, and if only 6 buildings that aren't in the historic district are built by notable architects, as you say, are you saying that the rest of the village could be bulldozed at it make no difference?
That's not what I said.
He was talking about the landmarks.
Right, so that the only 6 have been are worthy of.
That's not what I said either. I said outside of the historic, specificity is critical here.
Okay,
Because
so
we're talking about people's property rights.
John.
Outside
I'm done.
of the historic
Okay.
district.
Jane.
I think we should save the facade. I think it's charming. I think it adds a lot of character to our village, and by tearing it down, we're taking that away. So
Okay.
that's
This
my
is-
2 cents.
Okay. This is all nice, but it's not tethered at all to what the strictures that you're supposed to be operating
I
under.
understand.
So if I may say one
Well,
thing,
I actually
Mark,
haven't,
just
I
one
actually
thing.
haven't spoken yet.
Oh, I'm so
So why
sorry.
don't you let me?
My apologies. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I'm going to respond to a couple things. Your own visuals actually point out the fact, and then you say it's unsuitable for restoration. The truth of the building is the original core of the building still remains. Yes, it's
No,
been
it
all.
doesn't. No.
Your own picture showed it.
No,
But
no,
again,
no,
we're
no.
not going to debate this. Let me finish talking.
Well, it's not true.
But let me finish talking.
Okay.
Your own pictures show that underneath what is there now is the original core of that building. And when you tell me that the core is not worthy, the whole point of restoration is to bring things back to become worthy. And third, when you say it has no historical context, I'm not done. When you say it has no historical context, this was one once of a cluster of buildings in that neighborhood, the most of which have already been allowed by other members of this board to be removed. Therefore, it's unfortunately the last one standing in what was once a cluster in a neighborhood. So I find that disappointing. But the real question in front of us that I see is whether or not, we have two choices here. We can either landmark the building, or we can approve it for demolition, because that's where we are in the code. And I understand that's where it is. And then our question comes, does this actually rise to the level to be landmarked, which is the real question. Because we have a new board member, what I would ask you to do is submit all the material, and then let us come back to you with a decision.
Sure. The one thing I want to say is that this is not the building to fall on your sword on. It's simply not. There are other buildings in the village that are more significant in the historic district, older. You have allowed demolition of scores of buildings of this age because of the lack of anything remarkable here. I would just ask you to think hard. It's not the building to fall on your sword on. It's simply not, because it doesn't rise to any of the levels. And
Okay,
unfortunately, I don't rattle the saber
I know.
unnecessarily because I have to mean
maybe.
it. But really, on this record, and if you're going to deny this, you're really essentially telling us to seek a remedy elsewhere. Be very sure that what you're doing, and be sure that if you're going to fight a fight, it's a fight that is worth fighting. It's not fair to this applicant at all, who purchased this building outside of historic district. It went through 3 historic.
Okay, John, we know the history, so
rounds,
I'm
and
going to
that's just
wrap this. I'm just going to ask you to.
That's not being a good
First of all,
person.
I would like to thank you for one thing. You have given us tons of background information to read through, and I know you've done a very thorough job in your presentation, so I look forward to getting the rest of the materials, and I do say we will come back and give you a decision.
Thank you very much. So you'll keep it open?
So I'm going to move
Public
that we...
comment?
Oh, yes, do we have public comment?
Oh, no, we don't need public comment on this.
Okay, so then I'm going to move
The
for...
public hearing.
Do I need to move for an adjournment?
Yes, please.
Okay, then would you like an adjournment?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to move we accept an adjournment on, what address may I have to? On 54 Walnut Street. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And we will read through all the material, because there's myriad, you've given us,
And
a lot.
we'll send you the script. which
Yes, I would appreciate that. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next case, I just wanted to clarify there are 7 landmarks outside of the historic districts currently.
Thank you, Alex.
And 8
No
after
problem.
tonight.
That's soon to be 8, thank you.
And everything else can be
I
bulldozed.
said
There'll be 8
8
after
as
that.
of tonight.
Oh, correct, that's right.
The
movie
movie
theater.
theater.
Everything else is fair game, right?
Not this, John.
Okay, so next up on our agenda then is Jill and Richard Blanchard at 55 First Neck, and they have asked to adjourn to the 23rd. Do we need to approve that?
This was
That's already adjourned.
Okay, so the next up on the agenda is Richard Gormley and Suleika Zaruk at 80 North Main Street. Hello, please
Good
just give us your name and,
Yep. Good evening, board members. I'm Liz Vale with Greenberg Traurig at 2317 Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton. On behalf of the applicants, I'm here tonight with architect Brian Brady and the builder Chris Gaynor. They're both appearing on Zoom, if we could let them in.
okay?
Hi, how are you? Good to see you. So we submitted our application, I think, back in November, but it was adjourned so you could hear from your historic consultant.
Yep.
And we read the initial report. We amended the plans to eliminate the proposed porch. That was objected to by the consultant. We resubmitted these revised plans, I think, last week, and Brian's going to review them with the board and all
Great.
the changes.
Okay. Can everyone see me here?
Hello, yeah, we can see you, Brian.
Yeah. How's everyone?
We're good. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Let me try to share my screen here. Okay. What I'd like to do is walk you through the elevations of the house to show, I mean, this is a very important house to the history of the village. Sally did a wonderful report on it, and what I want to show to you tonight is that we are trying to preserve as much as possible of this house. We don't want to change the exterior much at all, and the poor additions that were added on it, we would just like to clean up a little bit. So if you don't mind, I'll just walk you through each elevation and point out what we are doing. You saw in a previous application about a month ago before Sally did her report, we found an old picture from the late 1800s, I can show you that had this beautiful porch on the south side of the house. And we thought, you know, our client thought, wow, this would be great to put this back on and embrace what was there in the 1800s. Well, going through further history with Sally, we realized that this porch was added on and the house actually dates back much further than that. So she was very adamant that we remove this porch. That was her big thing. So we are willing to do that.
Brian, do you think you're screen sharing?
Yes.
Because we are not. We know we're seeing you.
Oh no. Okay. I'm seeing my screen. So let's see. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Having computer troubles here. I'm sorry, I can't figure out how to. Get my screen to share. All right, can we maybe come back to me and I'll
Yes. So
figure out?
why don't we move on to the next applicant and
Okay.
then we'll come back to you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Of course.
I'm sorry, is there ever a time for public comment or about the written decisions? Because I'm not going to stay if it's not appropriate.
The written decisions that were already adopted?
The trees at Post
At
Crossing.
Post Crossing.
Oh, so those records are closed.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be able to accept public comment.
Can I ask a question? Like, come up to the podium, it's really quick.
You can ask a question, then we'll decide if
Okay.
it's in the jurisdiction of this meeting quickly, but we've
Hi, I'm
closed
Susan
those
Hopp,
applications.
I'm going to be quick, 95 Post Crossing. So here's my question. If the ARB in 2015 approved a landscape plan for that pool that was put in, and then another owner comes along and changes that approved plan, how do you police it? Like in this current plan, the changes had already been implemented when they put it.
I know where you're going,
Okay.
so I'm going to ask you to take it out of this meeting, but what I'll tell you is, and we can talk to you separately about
Okay.
it, what you really have right now is an issue with the town over the removal of those trees.
The village,
And
yeah,
it
okay.
at the village, I'm sorry, with
Okay.
the removal of those trees, and it's a cross between a neighbor dispute and a village problem. But it's more of a village problem because if those trees were on a plan that was approved and were not to be removed and were removed illegally, then it just needs to go to the village of Southampton. Because I agree with you, those trees should not have been taken down. And it was also not a good neighbor policy and not a good resident policy for the village of Southampton.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I agree
And we
with
can
you.
get the past minutes, like 2015, those records exist?
You can talk offline to the building department for what's
Okay.
available.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I'll just add to that, within the historic district, violations, destruction, the remedy is to restore it exactly in kind.
Okay, thank you.
So if a 60-foot tree was taken down, 60-foot tree has to be put back.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
and good luck, because
Thank you.
those
And that
trees
is
should not have been
possible.
taken down. All right, so I'm going to move on to the Southampton History Museum at 17 Meeting House Lane, then Brian will come back to you. Hello?
Good evening, board members. Congratulations.
In the interest of
Mark.
time, we went through this in December, so
Yes.
if there's new information, new factual information you
Yes.
want to give us, that would be great.
Yes, I'm waiting for Connor to get us on
Okay.
a line so that I could review the package. Few before he gets that drawing, few things to just let you know. First of all, we did clean up our drawings. One of the concerns was that basically we're not sure what's existing, what's proposed, and so forth. And to that extent, we eliminated the large master plan proposals that were part of that package and primarily are addressing what's existing and what's being proposed at this tonight's presentation. Secondly, we also have provided information. There was concern regarding the context of the pergola in relationship to Southampton History Museum and the building itself. We prepared a bit of a history as to, of course, this building was originally built in 1640, but its present, what you see today, was by the seventh generation of the Rogers family in the 1850s, basically converted it to what we call the elements of Greek revival style. And at that point, it was sold in the 1850s to Mr. Parrish, Samuel Parrish, and Mr. Parrish basically at that point, and at that point also a porch was added on to the building. The building was doubled in size, and Mr. Parrish moved it deeper
Okay,
into
I'm going to
the
ask you to
ground.
move on to talk to me about the pergola, because the
Yes.
history of the building we went through in December. So please tell me that anything's been new since the time we spent with you in December.
So what I have also shown you here is a context of the pergola in relationship to the building itself.
Okay.
Previously, we were only focused, being that this is an independent structure, we're just focused on the structure itself. But these views that you see right now are basically views from Meeting House Lane, and to the right, the entrance to the mansion. The pergola itself is not seen from Meeting House Lane, where it's proposed. It's on the north side of the property. If you could go ahead. And this is the north side of the property. You can see and keep going on. I want to give you more of a photographic context of what the structure is. This is basically an amalgamation of various clustered elements that was added throughout its life, not by one owner, but by numerous owners. And the pergola corresponds to the portion of the house that was the original mansion itself before its expansion. So basically, even though it's not attached to the house, again, element of Greek revival style, we call it peri-style versus a pro-style. Pro-style is only a one-sided porch. Peri-style is when the porch is all around the property, all around the structure, and in this case, an independent structure from it. It's sitting basically midway between the property line and the building itself. The width of the structure is about 12 feet on either side, also distance from the existing building, and not seen from the street. The one structure, there was a concern regarding historic context. There is an existing pergola on the property, and again, the proximity of that to the existing building is the same as what we're proposing in the new pergola. And if you could go ahead on that. And we have also in the, please go ahead. These are actually, by the way, historic plans of showing the building being moved from Main Street further deep into the property. And at that point, the pergola that is existing on there still existed, and it moved with the house. So if we could go ahead. There's the pergola. The pergola basically has a function. We have various activities. Connor, one of our basically historic museum members is very much active in having various activities with the schools under this existing pergola. And if you could go ahead. These are some precedents from Long Island, primarily buildings of the period in the early 1900s and the relationship of pergolas to them. This was a very common factor and feature of houses of that time and regions. I'd say that about 60% of these properties are in Southampton. I can walk them through you individually if need be.
No, please don't.
Let's go ahead again.
We've read through it and we understand.
Yes. So existing site plan and proposed site plan shows the pergola on the north side of at the top of the property. If you could go ahead on that. There
Yes.
we go. You can see it right
If
there.
I remember from last December when we did this presentation, the issue was that you guys had actually already built what was called proposed, and the sidewalks and the brickwork to be covered by your new pergola is already existing.
Correct. It already
Okay.
exists. Yes.
So
And
the
if you
real
go
question
ahead to
doesn't become about
elevations.
proposed, it becomes about, the question comes down to this pergola specifically.
Correct.
Okay.
If we go one more. I want to show you keep going to the elevations. So this is existing west side elevation with the pergola. You can hardly see the pergola here. It's on the right, left-hand side of this in relation to the building. And let's go on to the next, which is the north elevation. Here we go. So you can see the clustered organization of the existing elevation and how the pergola basically corresponds to the original dimensions of the depth of the house before it's doubling in size. Sitting, as I said, 12 feet away from the closest portion of it, which is this bay that sticks out. This bay sticks about six feet out, so actually about 18 feet away from the mass of the original building. Actually, mass of not even the original building, mass of this section, the original building is again another 8-9 feet from that. So from the original building, it sits about 22 feet away.
And can you take us through color and materials, please?
Materials, the cedar top is cedar, and the columns are polystone, the pergola's finishes. So we're not painting the cedar, it's left natural. And that's about as far as material. Of course, on the brick paved walk, we're introducing minimal lighting, just only 4 downlights in each one of those bays. I've submitted specifications on those, which adhere to night sky restrictions, and primarily lights up the path and nothing upwards.
Okay, and hang on. And the joists, the material for the joists?
Again, plain cedar.
Plain cedar, okay.
Everything cedar.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn it over to board members for comments or questions now because we went through it in December and that we were looking for additional information. So, board members?
Do you want to start?
No questions.
Yeah, I still object to the pergola. At the last meeting, basically the representative of the representative of the museum basically said the purpose of installing the pergola was primarily for commercial purposes in order to maintain the viability of the museum. And in my view, commercial needs take second place and a distant second place to architectural criteria. So when I look at this pergola, it's a good 60%. I know you showed the drawing there, but it basically goes across the entire main part of the building. Depends on how you look at the building. There's a wing to the east, but it covers the main portion of the building. So, but in terms of the entire frontage, if you will, or expanse of the building, it represents about 60% of the length of the house. And to me, that's more than a casual pergola for sunning or whatever. And again, we then get back to the commercial purposes, which there were no holds. It was full transparency, and I appreciate that, so you can host events and so on. And if that's the purpose, then I ask why not can a pergola be built over the existing bump out, if you will, that's to the west of the, what's that, paint shop, and along the alleyway? I don't know if you can pick it up, but there's a,
Jeff, let me.
and let me just
Let's get
finish, and
comments
we'll
from
get the comments from the board. But that's my view. I think this pergola detracts from this pristine historic house, and I think there's a viable alternative that would still provide the museum with its commercial concerns.
John?
Well, I would have to agree with Jeff about the size of the pergola. If it were representative of the residential structure itself, it wouldn't be that size. It would be something more in keeping with the original residence. So I think it's oversized, and the placement is it's a bit of a concern because of its proximity to the house itself.
Jeff, where are you suggesting it move to?
So I don't know if, Charles, you can't pick it up anymore, there are no more cameras here. But on the layout, the house on the northern side of the Rogers Mansion, along the alleyway that goes between St. Ambrose, I believe.
Oh,
and
right,
there,
yeah.
there is a square, and it's already bricked, that's probably about, I'd say maybe 20,
The proposed
25.
terrace on the,
No, no,
what's,
not the
what-
proposed terrace. It already exists here.
Okay, say that the existing terrace, so what you're saying is you
The
would be
existing
happier if we
terrace.
moved it to the existing terrace to pull the pergola farther away and
Right.
design it as a unique structure versus mimicking the history in front of the house.
Right. Thank you.
That's good summary,
That's a
Mark.
question.
That's why he's chair.
No, that's a,
yeah, that makes total sense to me.
let me propose that question to you. Because it does feel like we're taking an existing element from the 20s and just repeating it in the back, but you do have another opportunity, which is your proposed terrace, which is actually wider and has more square footage. Is there a reason why the covered area for entertaining and commercial purposes couldn't pull it back a little bit farther from the house
Yes,
over the
there is.
terrace versus where you've located it?
Yes. To go back to, even though this is not the purview of the board, the function, the use, specifically calling it the commerce, basically, the use of commerce. Our commerce at the Southampton History Museum is history. We basically have various events going on over there as far as educating the public, educating students from all different ages and so forth. And each one of these courtyards have been designed for specific activities in these areas. Yes, we have the different events 2-3 times a year where larger parties or galas are invited, but between those we have extensive activities, primarily school activities, which basically contribute towards education of history. And each one of these spaces is defined based on those needs and sizes of them. If we were to basically move the pergola further north to that, we would basically be eliminating that capacity of that space that is up there.
I think you misunderstand my question. My question was not, could you redesign the square footage of your not proposed but real terrace? Could you design a structure that covers that terrace and make that your covered structure, and where you currently have the pergola as an open space, and just flip them to where instead of mimicking what's in front of the house, you've taken actually a larger square covered space behind and taken structure away from the historic structure?
So
That's
one
the
of
question.
your concerns, or the board's concerns, is basically the size of this in proximity to the existing Rogers Mansion. And elevations do not do justice as far as this relationship. I've prepared some two-dimensional drawings, basically, which I would like to show
Okay.
you. So that basically it would show your relationship of this pergola to the, in real life, in 3D. And you're welcome to flip through these.
I know, that looks pretty overwhelming to me.
Basically, upon approach, this pergola is not encompassing 60% of the existing structure. It's more like basically 20% of it would be covered, and only 20% of the first level of it to an open structure. It's not that we're building any kind of a wall or enclosed structure that would block the view. This is an oblique angle upon entry, and the pergola is to the side of that Rogers mansion.
Well, a picture may be worth 1,000 words, and maybe a 3D picture may be worth 3 or 9 times that. I've walked the property, and I see a plot plan, and I see the house that is at least, 3 inches here, and I see a pergola that's 2 inches. That looks like about 2/3 of the coverage to me. And I see a spot back here that's distant from the house that has, to Mark's point, has about the same square footage. So if you want to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish, and the only difference between this and that is the shape and the fact that if you have to put a canopied runner,
Actually,
so whoever,
Jeff,
let me finish, Senator, canopied runner, so that either the service staff or who's ever getting married or whatever, if that's the use, they're going to have to just walk a little bit further down a canopied path. But a place exists for something that doesn't take away from this historic house, and so
you have one thing you have not considered this.
Okay.
If, let's assume for the sake of argument,
Okay.
that we do build a structure in the furthest north
Yeah. Mhm.
patio,
Yeah.
that would actually completely block the view upon entry to of the Rogers mansion.
Well, that's
I don't know that I agree with that,
rear
because the whole
entry to
point, the whole
parking
point
lot,
of a
sorry.
pergola is you can see through it, but go ahead.
Yeah,
You
but-
can see through it,
Yeah.
but basically, when you approach that building from the side angle, basically, the closer you bring the pergola to it, the roof of the pergola would basically block all your view of the roof lines and various clustered additions that have been
But they're
added to it
blocked,
of
to
the
my
main
view, they're
building.
blocked already by, those are blocked, if I'm walking up to it, they're blocked already by the proposed location for pergola. Here's where I think you're at. We understand what you want to do. We understand, we'd like to help the museum. We understand what the plight is. It seems to me, though, you don't have enough votes on this board for your pergola as it exists, both by the size and the scale of it and its location close to the building, versus an alternative proposal that would take what is your current proposed terrace and make that your covered structure and leave your sidewalk open. I mean, I think that's where you are right now. So we have 2 choices here. Either you can think about, we can adjourn tonight, you can think about that, or we can take it to vote. But I have to tell you, if we take it to vote tonight, I don't think it's going to pass. So what would you like us to do? Well, before I do that, public comment. We need to go to public comment.
From an aesthetic nature,
You have to just, sorry. Force a habit.
not an architect, but the
Can you
pergola-
introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, Sean Dennedy, Board Director of the Southampton History Museum. The walkway from Meeting House Lane wraps around the museum, and the pergola also functions as a joint joining the old walkway to the new area, to the old walkway. The museum actually, when you think about it, it's not facing Meeting House Lane. The entrance is facing the rear of Saunders, Corcoran, and the Nest Seekers. So it's not as if we're talking the back of the museum, although it is the back, it's really the side. So to a large degree, whatever aesthetics you might think occur looking at the back in itself is not very attractive. This, in many respects, if you're coming in from St. Ambrose, which I believe is what you were saying, is that you've got a different perspective in terms of looking at the property. And I did push the commercial aspects before because that's our intent, and you know all the reasons why. I don't have to go
And
over
we're
that.
hearing, I'm trying to figure if there's I think what we're hearing from the board is in location and scale as currently drawn, it feels too large and inappropriate against the history of the house. So is there another opportunity to take what is your terrace and cover that to be able to, I'm trying to figure out how to help you
Yeah.
do what you need to do, which is you need a covered entertainment space there in order for, frankly, revenue, because it helps you make money for the museum. So I'm trying to figure out, is there another alternative besides what's currently proposed here that might be acceptable to both sides?
Well, I think you basically said that we'd get a no if you had a vote versus.
On these plans as in front of us right now.
Yeah, so we will have to go back and talk to our committee and rediscuss that matter, and I guess adjourn it to another time.
Okay. Joan?
My question is, what intention do you have right now? It says proposed, I know it's already there. What do you have for the back terrace? What do you have in mind for that as it is right now?
The back terrace will be used for educational purposes. There'll be tables set up if, in fact, the superintendent of school elects to do that. Connor, who's our head of education, he has a variety of programs that are not only done through Zoom, but on location. We service all the schools, Tuckahoe, OLH. We also have a variety of organization, everything from the Daughters of the American Revolution to Heart of the Hamptons that use the space, or will use the space for different reasons. So
it's essentially the same purpose.
But if that space were covered, but that space were covered, you could still do that.
I guess from an aesthetic value, I saw what I looked at both things, and so did my committee, and they looked at the pergola as the bridge between the two walkways, and also quite. It was more attractive walking through the San Ambrose walkway, which is village owned, and seeing a different perspective to the back. If we were to see if we walked in, we wouldn't see the back, and if you go farther, the back's not very attractive. If it's appropriate, then the question is, how attractive is it if it weren't there? And I suggest that it's not that attractive, and it would be better served if the pergola were in the proposed area.
Well, I think what you're hearing is both in size, scale, and location. Either the scale is too big or it's too close to the house. If there's another option that you want to bring us that accomplishes your need, that's probably the best answer to think about right now, because I don't think we have the votes tonight to approve it as is currently drawn.
Okay.
So you would like to request an adjournment?
Just, we would like to request adjourning, but with the point that, first of all, a pergola is a linear element. What we're talking about, what's being suggested by the board, to put a linear structure in the northern patio would basically destroy the capacity that we want for a larger gathering of a crowd, unless that pergola's proportions completely change into more of a squarish, larger, wider,
which I assume they probably would.
But then it's not a pergola anymore.
Well,
it's basically
honestly, then maybe it's not a pergola. Maybe that's the issue, is because you've got a piece of history, and then you've got a historic museum that we're trying to replicate in the back that I think we're hearing isn't agreeing with some of the board members. So I'm just asking you to think about that.
But it's not the exact replication.
We're sort of out of time to debate for this tonight.
Yes.
I think that's where we are, and I think you
Very
would like
well,
an adjournment.
we'll ask for adjournment.
So I'm going to move.
Are we sure there's no other public comment?
None others came up.
Okay.
Okay. So I move we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment.
Second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Now we're going to go back to Brian. Brian, are you sharing? Is your sharing working?
If anyone could do me a favor and grab the remote on that podium, I would love to turn this hot fan off.
Oh, okay.
Do what?
I want it off. It's on. It's blowing my papers. I'm hot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay, we're going
over
back to
there.
80 North Main
Just
Street.
on
Brian,
track
is your
if
share
someone
working?
could get it.
Oh, yeah. I noticed.
It's right over there.
That's on the table over here?
It's like hot air on my head.
Oh, this fan here.
Like, I can't even put out my papers.
I keep filing away my
You can just give it to me. I know how to work it.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, Brian, we're going back.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can now see your
Okay.
screen. Thank you.
That's great. All right,
That
so
looks like the original proposal.
this is the original proposal, which in Sally's report, she had a major objection to with this front porch because it was added at a later date of the original house, and the original house, the way it was oriented, would never have a porch on the south side. So we agreed to remove it, and basically we're back to this being the front facade. I just want you to know that all the windows in the house, there are some that are very, very old, and there's just a few, and then there are some that are old windows, and we're trying to reuse every window that's there.
Thank you, that was one of my
The shingles
questions.
that are there, we're hoping to, we found some evidence, and Chris Gaynor is there, the builder, that can talk more about this if you're interested, but there's some evidence that the house was originally painted white. And so we're proposing to return the house to a white house with the original shingles matched where we need to, and take it from there. You can see on the front facade here, basically this area here, in the original plan, was a bad little sunroom that was added on. And we want to keep the actual mass of it, but clean it up and make the windows actually match the windows that are on the front facade, and redo the railing. Right now there's a stair going up to it, which we'll get to at the next elevation. Okay, let me.
And just one question, do you have a plan to build out that pediment opening, or does it stay flat to the front facade?
Right now, it is old, it's there, the door, it needs to be replaced, we're trying, we want to work with it. I want to keep it simple. If we can work with it, we will. If not, we're going to do something, along the same lines.
Great, thank you.
Okay, this is the east elevation, and you can see this is some French doors that were added. That's that appendage there with a stair going up. That's all being removed. These are some windows that were added later, and so we're cleaning those up, and they will be new windows to match the 2/2s here. And same with the sliding doors here. We're going to pick up that same light pattern. This attic window here is one of the original windows. It's in really bad shape, but we're not using the attic, so we could restore it. We could restore it and just put it up there as, a part of the history of the house. It does not relate to any of the other fenestration or any other light patterns. So that's a question for the board. If it's that important, we will keep it. If not, we would probably try to replace it with a 2/2 just to make it look more uniform.
Okay.
Okay. This is the north elevation, and you can see this is the stair going up. We're cleaning that up. This is another old window that was there, but it was moved to this location. If you look at the picture of this house when it was in Sally's report, there was actually a chimney running up here as well. There's evidence of it on the first and second floor, but in the attic, it's been completely removed. I don't know why this window is there, but it is there. So right now, we're trying to move these two windows over to here and add a new attic window and sort of make some harmony in that elevation as well. This is the North Main Street elevation. And these windows, although they are very old, obviously were added at some point. It kind of looks like a storefront from North Main. So what I'm proposing, since the address is 80 North Main, and this is becoming the front of the house basically, what I'd like to do is take these 4 windows and turn them into a bay, which would reduce the mass of them. They are old windows, and I'd like to reuse them, and then create just a small, simple porch for this area. In these days, we all get packages, and this is where they'll all come. So we want to have some sense of a covered area since we are removing that porch in the front. Everything else is basically staying the same.
The 4-window gang that we're looking at on the existing west elevation that you want to make into a bay, could you tell when you went through the house that those are original in that configuration, or were they altered over some time?
They were altered over some time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think,
I would imagine there was just one window there originally.
In Sally's report, she had no objection to that conversion.
No,
so-
Sally had no objection to the bay or the
I mean,
porch.
her only comment was she was fairly adamant about the attic windows remaining as is.
I know.
Yeah.
And, it's considering they are the original windows, I think that's worthy of consideration. They should be repaired in place as they are.
We're willing to do that.
And if they have to be replaced, then they should be
Well,
replaced.
it's not livable space, so
Right.
we can just,
Okay.
they won't, if we repair them, they're not gonna be operable. They're gonna be a fixed window, looking like the old window with all the old original wood.
My only question is, I'm fine with everything as you've done here. My question is about the colors. You mentioned that the original home was painted white, which I think it's great if that's the case. Do you have any history on the color of the shutters as it relates to the original color of the house?
No, we're gonna replace the shutters. Right now, they're not good shutters. And we're gonna put real wood shutters on there, and we were gonna paint them black. So-
Right. Well, that was my question. If there were original shutters on the original home, is there any way of determining what they might have been? Is there any history?
There's no original shutter there. I mean, there aren't any in the garage or in the basement or anything, so I don't know.
Well, maybe that's the question for Sally. Given on the age of the house, what would the traditional color have been of shutters during that time period?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask them.
May I? Yeah, Chris Gainer, C. Gainer Construction. I'm a preservationist by definition. I can say that the age of this house, if you want to see the shutters, take a look at the Halsey house on South Main. They were probably wood, board and batten, nothing to write home about. As the Charles Halsey family progressed in stature, they made changes to the house. Eventually, it's kind of funny, earlier Havens and Wild was mentioned. The Wild family lived here, and they made a lot of changes to the house as well, and the Duriers. And so I can say that those 4 windows that are in the front were added during the Havens Wild time, and the windows in the attic, actually, I was in the attic with Sally when we discovered the age of the windows. They will go back to my shop.
Great.
If they can't be salvaged because of rot or whatever, they will be recreated perfectly and reinstalled.
Great.
I did this in a house in Sag Harbor a couple of years ago where we took every window out and we turned the library into a window factory, and we rebuilt them, and nothing changed other than the fact that they worked. So,
And then the board and batten shutters would be consistent with
I don't think that, the problem is the house has changed in look drastically. I don't think putting it back to the way it looked when it was built originally would be appropriate. The shutters would have been very rustic because they were more for protection from wind than they would have been for decorative.
Well, that's why I think having working shutters on a house of this age would be appropriate instead of just an ornament, of a shutter.
Are they going on as operable? Are the shutters going on as, will they be operable?
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if not, they'll have the appearance of being operable.
And do you plan to do no foundation work, not lift this house and put it back down, just leave it as is? And in the current exposure on the shingles, they seem to be about 8 inches all the way around. Are you keeping the existing shingles and reusing them? You're not reshingling
the shingles
the house.
are in amazing shape.
Yeah, they're fairly
there's
recent.
no need to change them at
Okay.
all. When we take the 4 windows out to make the bay, we're going to endeavor to salvage the shingles to put back around so that it doesn't look like we were there. If not, we will find a way to make it look before we stain.
Okay. Good. Brian, before we end, are you also taking us through the pool house?
I have a
Sure.
question about the bay window, if that really goes with the style of the home. I don't think a bay window would have been something that was there
I thought
hundreds of years ago.
I thought the same thing, but until I read Sally's report again, and she had no objection with it, I didn't think twice about it, but it's a good question.
Well, the, the fact that a consultant has no objections
Yeah.
is a consultant's opinion,
I got it.
and which is not to be dismissed.
Totally.
On the other hand, I share Jane's concern. It's the front of the house, the west elevation, is extremely simple, maybe too much so. But then I wonder if a bay window gussies it up to the point where some of that very stark colonial look is somehow bastardized.
It would have originally had just one window to match the fenestration on that side of the house, right?
That's what Chris was, I think, Chris, you were saying that there might have been just one window there?
Brian said that, but
Right.
I
I said that,
concur
yeah.
with him.
Yeah.
That there most likely was one window there. There's actually I think a 27-page, I'm gonna call it a story rather than a history of the house, written by one of the Halsey descendants that talks about those 4 windows when her grandparents owned the house. But if you look, when Sally and I took Sally to the house so she could also see the interior, not just the exterior. And Sally and I both felt that it was most likely a center fireplace, colonial, when it was built.
Oh, yeah.
And we found evidence of that everywhere we looked.
Yeah, it was in her
Because that would have been, that wasn't the front of the house.
Right, well, see, the front of the house is south, so they gathered
Right.
the sun on the south light. And so where that chimney is right there is actually the new fireplace is over about 6 feet off the center. And they created a center hall where the fireplace was. But if you look at the flooring and you look at what's going on, and it's not the first time Sally and I have found things like that before. We believe that originally it was a center fireplace, and that everything that you see on this side is built afterwards. And the original house is what you see there. The attic of the house is absolutely amazing with the timbers that are hand hewn and.
In the interest of time,
Where's
Brownie,
the tenement?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but in the interest of time, Brownie, you also taking us through the pool house?
Yeah. Okay, so the pool house will be the same shingles, same size shingles, they will be painted white. It's, I'm basically trying to keep a simple roof line, you're limited by 16 feet, and, basically, it's a simple pool house with a gable.
And do you have a hip roof on that house because you're up against any kind of pyramid situation?
Yes, we are, but it was also done to try to diminish the mass of the pool house. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. If I just did a hip roof on there, the mass would just get a little bit bigger.
Okay. All right, board members, additional comments?
I don't know, the more I look at it, keeping the original 4 windows, or what would have been the 4 windows on the west elevation, some might say that lacks any design or style, but I think it's more in keeping with the history of the building.
Jane?
Yeah, I would agree. I find the bay window somewhat offensive and just tweaking it into something it's not. I also want to mention that if it was originally painted white and you want to go back to that original, then let's find out what the original shutters were, because I think the black and the white looks really modern. The black shutters with the white.
Do we think there's any shutters of which a scrape test could be done?
Those aren't the original shutters.
They're not the original shutters.
Not the originals.
Yeah,
Okay.
not original shutters, and there's no evidence that there were shutters when the house was built.
Okay. Jeff, anyone else? Okay, I would tell you that before I go to public comment, I would, if we follow the rule of try to honor the original window openings, I think that if we took the bay window out and back to the original openings, I think it would be more akin to the actual history of the house. And other than that, I think the house itself, thank you for removing the porch, because that was my big objection as well, Sally aside. And I think you've done a good job of taking what is the pediment front of the house and adding the side door to sort of reorient the front of the house. The question I have, one question I do have is about the pool house, because I don't really see a strong architectural relationship between the pool house, which seems to have round columns and be a bit more Palladian, to the simple structure, which is the main house. And because it's going to be visible from the street driving by, for example, the shutters are solid panel versus board and batten. There's, and then you've got the larger scale and the double columns and the diamond window going into the pool house. It feels like the pool house could maybe be pulled back a little bit to be more style akin to the main structure. It's just my opinion. Does anybody else feel that way?
It's a good call.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Do
Yeah,
we have any?
I can simplify it. I mean, you know, they're not columns, they're pilasters that are
Yeah.
on there, and they were actually done when we had the porch, and it kind of related to the
Okay.
porch because they had
But
columns on it.
But
So
now
I
that
can-
now that
I
the
can
porch is
simplify
gone.
that, yeah.
Okay. That would be great, because I just think if we had a little more relationship, that would be great. Do we have any public comment? Okay. So Brian, I think there's only two questions. One is the bay window, and one is a little bit of question on the pool house design, if that could be brought in a little more in relationship. And then there's just a question about, do we want to just take a minute to think about, are we sure that black shutters are the right color shutters for this house? So I think those are three things. So I think with those issues, are you asking for an adjournment?
Yes, but I do have one question.
Sure.
If I do remove this bay window, would you rather go back to the 4 windows that are there in the placement they are now?
Do we have an understanding of when those 4 windows went in?
Well, they're not original, right?
Yeah, but were they done in
I
like
think they were put in when the
1926
porch
or-
was put on.
And
Well, that would have
it's
been-
a historical picture of the house with black shutters,
Oh, great.
so.
And do we have a sense of when that gang of 4 was actually put in that house?
No,
Goes
probably-
20s?
Probably in the 1920s when Harry Wilde did the renovation.
I guess, board members, what's your thought on those gang of 4?
I mean, you consider that this house goes back to the 1700s, they would never have put those 4 windows in.
Right. I would opt for
Because they wanted less windows for retaining heat.
Right.
I would opt for the single window, actually. I think it's more consistent with the history of the house.
Okay.
And I still question the black shutters. I mean, the picture you showed us was a black and white photo, right? So there's no telling what color they were. In contrast to the house, they were darker, but
So if the house is white, they're definitely.
And what year
a
is
dark
that?
color. No idea. No idea, no way of knowing when it was. The article was written in 2008, but I don't know when this picture was taken.
I guess my point is that
There is,
based on the date of construction of the original house, even if it did not have shutters, it would be nice to know what traditionally would have been put on a house of that size and stature and what color those shutters might have been. That's my,
if you go to New England, you see a lot of old houses that are white with black shutters.
okay, that's just the question I'm asking, so.
All right, so I don't know if that answered your question about those gang of 4 windows, Brian, but, you know, depending on what
I
year
would rather see the 4 windows than just one window, to be honest with you, because the 4 windows from an interior perspective adds a lot of light to that living room, and it does a lot for the space inside, so.
Okay, if you could find out for us a little, if we had an idea of when those 4 windows went in, that would be useful too.
Okay.
Because it could have been, could have been 1973 or it could have been 1910, we're not sure. All right,
no,
so.
the windows are much older than that,
Yeah.
so.
The gang of 4?
Yes.
Then they're if they're much, it'd be helpful to know if you could just sort of estimate, because then they become part of the architectural history of the house, so.
Right, okay.
We'd like to take that into consideration. So I move we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in
Did we
favor?
ask for public comment?
What, we did?
I think we-
Okay, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Did you vote, Jane?
I did, yes, I did say aye.
Okay. I can't hear her.
All right, before I do that thing that I always do and file away my
Needs her mic
own
closer.
agenda.
You're not used to us.
All right, so I believe that next we are up to 99 South Main Street,
That she's not voting.
which is the demolition of an existing house, pool house, and the construction of a new house at 99 South Main Street.
Because they can't hear her.
Good point. Is the applicant here? Searsucker 3 LLC.
You need help, Jeff? You got it?
I need help. I can get by.
Are there any hands in the back?
I think the architect's
Oh, there he is, okay.
on Zoom.
Okay, great. Okay, sir,
Hi.
if you'll
Frank,
name and introduce yourself, please, and then we can go through your presentation.
Frank Greenwald, architect, 295 Main Street, Sag Harbor, New York. I'm the architect for the project. This is sort of continuation of December's hearing.
Yes.
And the only comments that I think we had at that hearing was the elimination of a door on the second floor.
That's correct.
I'm sharing my screen, there we go. So this is the front of the house. This on the right side is the elevation where we had a door leading out onto this deck, and we've just taken the door out and put in a window. And that really was the only comment that was raised at the last hearing. So I think we've accommodated the board's request, and I don't know if anybody has any other comments.
Okay, board members? That is my recollection, but.
Yeah, I think,
And I also believe in the last meeting you hadn't actually done the application for demolition, wasn't that correct?
I think that's correct, but
Yeah.
yeah, now we're.
Yes,
applying
that
for
application for demolition did come through. So I think my recollection is that was the one issue that was left outstanding. But for my new board member, Jane, did you have any questions?
No, I think it was going to be the same footprint as the house that's there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
It's the
Yeah.
same footprint, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, any other
Okay,
questions?
no, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to move,
and they eliminated that issue.
is this a certificate of appropriateness?
Yeah, written
Okay,
decision.
I'm going to move that we.
Do we need public comment?
Oh, sorry, public comment? We do, I forgot about it. Okay. Then I'm going to move we
Close the record for
close the
written
record for
decision.
written decision. Thank you. On 99 South Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we're going to move to new matters, and the first matter is 25 Willow Street, the addition of existing wood frame house and garden shed. Is the applicant here or online? Kevin Bone?
This is one that I have not received affidavits for.
Is the applicant here?
Looks like they're joining on Zoom.
Okay.
You can't submit an affidavit by Zoom,
Hey,
can they?
hello, everyone. Let me just, yeah. Good evening. My name is Kevin Bone. Am I coming through?
You are, sir?
Yeah,
But now we
haven't.
But the
My name
question,
is Kevin Bone.
the question exists, have you filed affidavits of mailing?
Yes, yes, I did. I filed all of that with Derek digitally, and I raised my hand earlier when that question was asked to confirm that we did do all the paperwork.
We can check the file, but I don't have it.
You do not have the affidavit of mailing?
Right now, we don't have the affidavit of mailing here, which means we can't
No,
take
and did you
jurisdiction.
submit an affidavit of posting today?
No, it was a week ago.
Oh, it would need to be dated today. You have to certify that the posting remained at the property. You would only be able to do that the day of.
Well, I just left the property today, and the posting is still up on both Dale and Willow Street. That was not clear to me. Yeah, that was not clear to me that it was today.
I'm sorry.
You know, I came in, I saw Derek, he gave me the posting, so does that mean this can't proceed?
I did
Correct.
drive by, I mean, the posting was there.
The rules are rules, I'm sorry, right?
We don't have an affidavit.
I'm sorry, but because we don't have an affidavit of posting, we can't actually take jurisdiction or proceed.
Okay.
So we'll move you to the next meeting, and I apologize. But we do need to.
No
we
need
do-
to apologize.
we do-
I was in communication with Derek, so
Yeah.
it didn't seem to me that, you know, perhaps as an architect, I should have been reading your rules more clearly, but it didn't seem to me, you know, I verified that I had posted the the notices. Yeah, all right.
And typically when we give out the poster, attached to that is the affidavit of posting, where you sign that the poster has been up for 10 days. So that should have been one of the forms attached to that poster. Hopefully it was. But if not,
I believe I submitted that. I got the forms probably, you know, right before Christmas.
All right, well, I think for the purposes of tonight, we don't have them, and we can't take jurisdiction.
Yeah, all right,
we will see, I'm sorry, but we'll see you in 2 weeks.
You know, this is my 4th appearance before the board, so I should know the rules a little better.
Okay, well, thank you very
Fourth
much.
application.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do we move to adjourn?
No.
We just move, okay, because we couldn't take jurisdiction. All right, so the next up is 92 Cooper's Neck Lane, construction of 3 accessory structures. And I'm going to ask that you guys just go to what was approved, and then what you're changing.
That's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Chairman, we have affidavits on this one, so we can take jurisdiction.
Hi, Melissa Dedovich, Peconic Environmental Associates, here on behalf of our project. This is a modification, 4.6 acre property. We're going to show you what was originally approved and what we're now approving. And here's Tom Klingerman.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Tom Kligerman of Kligerman Architecture and Design. I have a question before I start. Can I use the boards if we put the same images up on the computer, or should I point to the computer?
Yes, but for the public and purposes,
They'll
they do
be-
have
they'll
to
be able
on-
to see the
yeah,
same
but
thing.
But you can do them both, yes.
The only thing is you're gonna have to stand next to the
But you
mic.
still have to stand by the mic.
I'll be Vanna White.
Okay.
Well, maybe I should
So
point to
much
the
better
computer.
than Melissa, believe me.
All right.
So we're here to seek approval on changes to these 2 buildings, not the main building here. These buildings are both behind the main house. One is the pool house. We've refined the design on both the pool house and this garden building. We call it the orangery. So that's that. The pool house
Oh, you
below
really are, Carol.
is
This is good.
I can go even faster. Below is what was approved before. It was a large building with a sort of a breezeway between it. We divided into 2 smaller structures. I think
so
it's-
much better.
It's about 150 square feet smaller. It's more, almost as though this was there before it even began. In red cedar shingle, like the existing house. This is at the back. This was what we approved before. There were 2 buildings with a pergola in between. We're proposing actually a more functional garden building. This was going to be a place for little dinner parties and stuff like that. They realized that with a property of this size, they want a place to garden. And so that's this structure, also in red cedar shingles, like the other buildings on the property. And it's smaller by 134 square feet.
Okay. I just have one question before I turn it over to my board members. In the original drawings, you gave one of your accessory structures showed cooking.
No, it's removed.
And was that removed?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, because I asked.
Have any corrected plans were submitted to
Yeah, okay, just wanted to make sure and put it out there. The correct ones are the 23rd ones?
correct.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, board members?
Just to clarify for myself here, all the structures will be in red cedar, even the garden building?
Yeah, it's a watercolor. It looks like stone, but it's.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
not.
was gonna say.
It's cedar shingle. The shingles do sort of a voussoir around the opening like stone might, but it's actually all
That's
wood.
what, yeah,
Yeah,
tripped me up, that the keystone kind of over there.
Right.
Right, there is a keystone, but that's in cedar also, but not a shingle. That's actually cedar trim.
Interesting, okay.
And the window material is?
The windows on the pool house are wood. The windows in the garden building are going to be a gray painted steel.
Okay. Jeff?
Compliments, very nice.
It's
Jane?
I was going to say, pleasantly surprised.
It so changes, the change in the pool house
Yeah.
changes the entire look of
Yeah,
everything.
We've
I mean,
had time to kind of, get into the property and
Yeah.
relax a little bit. I think we agree.
How old is the original house?
The original house is 1898.
And it was Atterbury House? This one?
I don't
not
think
this
anybody
one?
knows who the architect
No?
was.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
I wish it were an Atterbury house.
Yeah.
Do we have any comments from the public? Okay,
Okay.
you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move we close to written decision. 92 Cooper's Neck Lane for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jane?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Next on the list is
So that got submitted to written decision?
written decision.
Right.
Okay, good.
Next on the list is 92 Post Crossing.
Hi, I'm Jeff
And
Gibbons
it's
for
92
the
Post
applicant.
Crossing LLC.
Yes,
Please
Jeff
introduce
Gibbons,
yourself.
architect, 82 Roses Grove Road, Southampton.
We
The
have the
applicant?
affidavits and they're in order. Sorry to interrupt you, I have
Oh.
to say it.
To drop them off today. This is really, this has been before you about 8 times, but after it was approved, we were not allowed by the decision to reconstruct it. We had to renovate what was there. But what was there was in such poor shape that even to lift it, to put a foundation underneath, it was going to collapse. And we don't want it to collapse. We want to rebuild it. So that's what the new application is. I mean, there's rotten wood, there's busted timbers, there's exact same location that it's in now. We're not moving it, as was requested originally by the ARB.
So you're keeping it back and tied up against the property line where it was previously?
Right.
Okay. And take us through the changes, the same change you were doing before, you were adding an opening and doors, and there were some
Right.
other changes you were making to the
Right,
original
we're-
structure.
we're adding,
Change, especially because she's.
Everything's the same. The exact same design is, it's adding of some wood doors on the north side, which faces the yard, so you can get into the building and add a little light, because the windows that are in there are pretty dark.
Okay. And one more time, is someone posting?
I'm
Oh.
sorry, I didn't. I did send in
Submit, okay.
I did submit
All right.
electronically, but.
Yes,
Are they French doors? Well, I'm confused what kind of doors these are.
They're 2 wood doors, yeah, like French doors.
Yeah, okay.
okay. If I put these on the table, can you pick it up with the camera? Okay. Alex, do you have this?
There's nothing to say.
Allow me to check, sorry.
Yeah.
I was on mute.
It looks that the exterior boards are somehow of value. I mean,
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
It's gonna be natural cedar with a tongue oil finish.
and that was the original, or those,
Everything is the same
The
as
same.
before,
Yeah.
only instead of being renovated, it's rebuilt.
It's being rebuilt. And you're rebuilding it to exact size and scale in terms of like freeze boards,
Yes.
wood color, wood width,
Exactly.
everything that's there. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
There we are.
All right. Board members?
No, it's in pretty sorry shape. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah.
And,
No,
you
no
know,
objections.
we're trying to save it before it just goes into
Dissolves.
dust. Yes.
How very Frank Lloyd Wright of you.
And did I ask for comments from the public? Comments from the public? Okay. Yeah, I have no objection. I think it's basically the same thing, you're just building it from new. So if there's no objections, no comments from the public, I'm going to move we accept and move to written decision.
I do have one comment. Any exterior lighting, because this is.
There's one light over the door.
It was,
The barn,
yeah,
the
barn
barn
light,
light,
yeah.
that's there, okay.
That's this one that's
Yep.
existing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that.
which is in the plan,
Which is in the
not the
plan.
original plan.
Yeah, we had that.
What was previously approved plan.
We started in September on this.
Okay,
job.
so I'm going to move, I'm going to.
And we're hoping to get it done by next summer, but-
Decision, 92 Post Crossing for the demolition and rebuilding of the existing barn to match existing. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, all approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? We are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Are we done?
Are we done, or do we have to wait? Do we have to get a decision next week?
I'll have a decision on for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes to written
So
decision,
don't
then
do
we vote on the
anything
written.
until
Yeah.
the next.
I'll be quick about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
But you're done,
Because
more or
we're
less.
back.
It's like, yeah.
No, we love, as much as we love seeing you, you
Yeah.
don't have to be here for that,
Okay.
okay?
all right, so I think that's the end of historic. So I think we're going to move on to carryover matters from non-historic, and next up is 46 John Street. The very famous 46 John Street. When it's over, you're going to miss us.
Round 6 or 7, right?
Okay, please introduce yourselves.
Sure.
It's the project. It's like,
Good evening, Heather Wright for the applicant, Jennifer and Nathan Ondiak, 30 Main Street, Southampton, New York. I'm here with Steve Liu, our architect. I'm hoping to make this quick for you this evening. I think there were two things that the board had requested at the last meeting. One was to reduce the size of the side porch, which we did by 30 square feet. It's now 59 square feet. We reduced it to 6.6 by 9, and we moved the stairs so that they're in line with the entryway stairs, so that they're in line with the house. So I believe that covers what the board was asking for.
There was a question about columns and their location on the
Yep.
circular porch.
So I think if I share this, I can show you that the columns are not blocking the windows. They're like sort of off-center of each window. Let me just see if I can.
yeah, that's the way it looks on the
plans.
drawing
Yeah, I
now.
was going to show you
Yeah.
bring up the plan. If you'd like.
Obviously, if you're looking at it at an angle, it will.
I think that was the problem with
straight
the
on.
rendering. I
Yeah.
think the rendering was capturing it at an awkward angle. Am I in? Am I sharing the screen? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here you go. So, as you can see on
There you go.
as you can see on this one, the columns sort of are on the inside of each window, so it's definitely not blocking the window.
I think it's a nice compromise from where we started.
And just take us through the, do you also have the front elevation? Side elevation, which I guess would be the east elevation?
Yep, I can show you that. Right here.
And for everyone here, we do like cardinal marks on our plans. There we are. Okay.
So this is the proposed east elevation right here. You
Okay.
can see that the stairs are in line with the existing house here, right? And then if I show you the let's see. Which one? Is the first one? This one?
Yeah, the steps used to protrude past the,
Yep, so we brought them in.
yeah.
Okay. All right, is that the end of your presentation?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah.
We went through a lot last
Yeah.
time, and I'm happy
Yes,
to.
and the time before that, and the time before that, yes. Okay, so board members?
I'm satisfied.
Yep, no objections at this point. Come a long way.
A long way. Jane?
Sorry.
I know the house, and it looks like it's going to be very similar to what was there.
I know this has been a very long process. But I agree. I think we've brought it back down to where, you know, the main house now retains the character and a lot of the character that people in the neighborhood really cared about, which is a circular porch. It's smaller, but to me, it maintains the homage of that. So any public comment? Okay. Therefore, I move then that we accept, word this for me,
What's that?
what am I moving here?
Approve the application.
I move that we approve the application for 26 John Street.
46.
For 46 John Street, the demolition of existing front porch and construction of a proposed side entry. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you. All right. So that means next up, we are at 30 Bellows Lane, construction of a two-story, single-family dwelling. Is the applicant here? Great.
Good evening. Ron Villano, architect representing the project.
Yes?
Do I need to upload any documents here? We gave everything.
You actually need to upload all of them.
All of them
Yeah,
again?
so
Okay.
so the public can see your presentation.
Okay. And then when I get in there, just raise hand and then upload?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's it.
That's
I
it?
just, yeah, I just raised my hand.
Okay.
Stay as an attendee. Alice? Okay.
You're presenting for your cell phone?
And then from this point, well, it's the best service.
I love it.
From
Have
this
great
point
eyes.
To upload documents. What's the next step to upload from here?
Share your screen.
Share your screen.
Share screen.
Last one's proposal.
Gives me the start video. Would that be?
You have to choose the tab that contains your,
Got it. Got it. Start broadcast.
And now
there you go. Oh, kind of.
That was last time.
And then from here, just pick up the documents from the files?
There you go, yeah.
Okay. All right, so what we did some research, and I have the also comparison sheet of neighboring homes. Having that gable, and we have the smaller gable inside of it, front facing. We did remove the corbels, remove some detail per your request. If you want to look at the renderings here. And you can see at the bottom how it's simplified, the chimney detail is simplified. Removed 2 more chimneys.
Yep.
And do you want me to show on the screen now the other neighboring properties?
No,
For
we
comparison?
don't need to see the other properties. Explain to me what's different in this drawing than what we saw in the last meeting. Because this is not the same, the front facade of this house has now changed again from last meeting.
Well, we,
And last meeting, I felt like we were ready to go, that your plans didn't meet the drawings, and now we've redesigned the house again.
no, this is the same. We just simplified that chimney. The chimney had more detail to it. It came up, it was wider at the bottom, and it came narrower at the top. So we simplified that.
Hang on. So, the plans that I have dated November 30th, the front elevation has a single gable,
That's, yeah, at the last meeting, we didn't present that.
but you submitted them, because I have them.
Late November, not for the, what was it, December 13th? Whatever, it was that December meeting, we didn't present that.
These both are dated the same date, but two different renderings. I'm confused.
We attempted to clean and organize the file, but I know we can't do that, so I've tried to simplify it, because I know last time there was confusion as well in the file.
No, I mean, from the building department standpoint, these are,
Oh, those are current render, yeah.
but they're two different renderings.
Let me see.
One has 4 bells, and that one has been...
Oh, yeah.
Those,
Okay, but...
oh,
of the
those not the
drawing-
same?
So explain to me that the drawing you submitted that's dated November 30th, what happened to that? Because that's
came
that's
back-
that's a simpler
We
house.
came back, defined, did not want to do that.
What?
Oh, this is the, board and batten.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't do options. Which one are you presenting?
No, we're not doing
This
board
is-
and
this
batten.
is what
It's all gonna be shingle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Right, so this was November 30th.
Yeah,
Right.
because when we were in this meeting, because we talked about this, May, you weren't here.
No,
Was the builder here?
no.
Somebody was here. Because didn't we have a conversation about value engineering 2 chimneys off this house? Because when you originally brought it to us, it had 3 chimneys, and somebody came here, we had a conversation about what happened to the other 2 chimneys. Was that with you or with the
I
builder?
believe it was with me, and then we simplified it down to the one chimney.
Right, you did. And
And
then...
it wasn't
because
value
this is-
engineering, it was to pull some of the detail from the exterior.
Because now, we've gone from the drawings that I thought we looked at in the last meeting, which are these, which is a better looking house, to now a house that has too much detail.
Well-
And I think is not design harmonious with the neighborhood is what was presented to us. And so I feel like we're going backwards from the house it was here on November 30th.
We can go to the neighboring homes comparison photos.
We don't need to. We've all driven the neighborhood. We know what the neighboring homes look
Well,
like.
they look
What
like
I'm
this.
saying is, for this house on this property versus this version that you submitted, now it's gotten, it's back to having, because you took one gable back and then added another gable to the front, and I'm not sure, and now it's board and batten on part of it and shingle on part of it. I feel like it's again a different house than what we looked at
The
last
board
time.
and batten is not on the actual drawings. That was a rendering, so on the
So
actual.
then your rendering doesn't match your drawings.
For the board and batten, so if you can overlook that and see the house in the drawings right there, you'll
So
see there's no board and
the
batten.
renderings should be thrown away then.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, that's giving you your shape and depth and shadowing, you could see past that.
What's my most current version?
Okay, so,
We did a pretty good study of the neighboring homes, and they are pretty detailed. They have the small roof returns, they have multiple forward-facing gables, they have smaller gables within larger gables, they have gambrels mixed with hip roofs. They have odd window designs. There's a 2.5-story window detail in one of the homes. There are multiple type design homes in this immediate area. And at the court, there are large homes in that court right next to us. The one that's 2 over, let's say if we're here, and you went south, and then on Bellows, that was being built right now, has all these little peaked dormers coming out, and then a larger one, which is busy. This.
I don't think any of these were approved by this board, that's for sure.
No, they weren't.
I hope they were.
Okay, so I'll open it. Is that the end of your presentation? Shall I open up the
Yes.
board for comments?
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
board for comments. Jane?
I'm just becoming familiar with it, so
Sure.
I definitely need a little time on this one.
I have no problem starting with this one. Does anyone have an issue with the pillars or the front porch obstructing the windows on both sides, or is that? I thought we brought that up the last meeting.
On this house or with the prior application?
No, this house, is this the current plan I'm looking at? I assume it is.
So, no, right. Well, okay. You know, I think it might behoove us just to go through this house, and so you're indicating, I'm sorry, so you're indicating
The front elevation.
front elevation, a question, you take issue with the pillars.
Right.
So that's one check, so.
Okay, that's one
Well,
check.
whether it existed before or not.
It doesn't matter. Right, it would have been an issue before with me. Okay, so that's one. I think the roof line across the front interrupting the gable is just a bit awkward to me as well. Those are the two main things.
So we have both the benefit and the disadvantage of having that which was almost 80% approved or 90% approved, and now a very different house. So my general comment is that which is before us now, and you're asking us to opine on, has a lot going on it. And I think that's what some of the members are saying in one way or another. Whether it be the columns, whether it be the addition now of a multi-faceted overhang in the front first, and the addition of a second gable, and then I'm not even sure what the terminology of the relief going across that follows the roof line.
Oh, the roof that goes across inside the gable?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Inside the
yeah.
gable. And yes, it may be that some of these elements exist on some of the other houses. We're looking at this house on this property, and I see a lot going on, and then I can't help. It's just like in business when you provide somebody with projections, and then you give them revised projections and tell them to ignore the previous ones. They can't. So I think to Mark's point, when I look at that which after several iterations you've come back with and had greatly simplified, now I would agree with Mark that we've gone a step backwards and have complicated, and this is a situation where I think less would be more, and you were there the last time.
I can't comment on that because I didn't
Right.
really
No,
see the
so
last time.
you're fresh eyes, so
Yeah,
that's fine. That's what
It
you-
does seem like there's an awful lot going on. I will certainly admit that.
I just think that with this sort of almost Peckham-looking roof that's dividing the gable, and now the addition of the second gable, and now the window sizes changed are all uneven, the design is not as straightforward and honest, and more in keeping with the style of Southampton as the version that came in front of us in the last meeting. I think it's a little too over architecture for the size of the house and the size of the lot, and I don't think when I look at the other houses, especially what's across the street from, that it sits harmonious in the neighborhood in this iteration. I think we were more successful in the drawings that we saw from the 9th. The one I wrote to was the single gable version of it, was I just think it was a more successful house in that neighborhood. I think there's too much going on now in this house versus what these plans were.
I disagree. I did an intensive study looking at all the homes there, and they are much busier than this front elevation. If that intermediate roof is bothering you, that's on that main larger gable over those double windows, that could be removed, but that smaller gable that's within it is repeated around this area immediately, in an immediate area.
I think what you're hearing from the board, before I go to public comment, what I think you're hearing from the board is the board takes issue with the current design at the front of the house, with the gable within the gable, they think the roof line that separates it's a little too heavy, and they find that the columns seem to be heavy, and they're not in love with the presentation of it. So for that reason, my instinct is if we went for a vote tonight, you're probably not going to get it. So we'll figure out what that would mean for you. But in the meantime, I do want to open this for public comment. Is there any public comment on this house? Okay, so I think that's where we are. So would you like us, you've heard the comments. Would you like us to adjourn and come back? Or, because I think if you vote tonight, it may not be
I
successful.
guess so. And we'll
Okay.
design it like the less fortunate homes on the block,
Okay.
if you would like that.
So I think we're going to, I move we accept,
Sure,
move-
give that a try.
Okay, I move that we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment for 30 Bellows. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Louder. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, hang on. I've lost for a second.
How did this get in there?
What's next?
We're at 71 and we're adjourned, 71 Hill.
Okay.
Adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so do we have to, did we adjourn that last meeting to the 23rd?
No.
Okay, so do
Yeah,
we
we
have
had a
to?
request for an
So I move we accept the applicant's adjournment to the January, for 71 Hill Street LLC to January 23rd. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. The next up is Robert Korstein, 43 Bailey Road, for the demolition and reconstruction of a single-family dwelling. Hello?
Good evening, Board.
Please
Rob-
introduce yourself. Yep.
Yes, Rob Kornstein, 43 Bailey Road, owner.
Okay.
And if we could go to A200 first, that would be the first drawing we'll look at.
Sir, are you prepared to do your digital presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Digital,
Did you bring a computer, and are you prepared to do your own digital presentation?
no, John Bennett submitted
Okay.
this.
All right, just for the basis of the room, going forward, everyone has to present their own digital presentations. But for tonight, Alex, do you have it? Can you bring it up?
Let me see what we can find in the board's Dropbox.
Okay.
Looks like there's a in here, I'm not sure.
I'm looking for A200, please. I would start there.
And these are the drawings dated January 5th?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I just want to let you know I don't expect to take up much time here. We addressed everything that we went through on the December 14th meeting and have made the corrections. On A200, we have removed the shed roofs over the windows on the front of the house there. And to the left side, the garage shed has been secured to the side of the building properly.
Not floating.
It's not, yes, we found the nails, we nailed it up. The front roof over the front door has been matched to the overhang of the roof above to give it symmetry and cohesion. And if we can go to drawing A010, the recessed courtyard on the east side of the structure was enlarged by about 3 feet for mechanical equipment, so we could put the mechanical equipment below grade. The pool heater, the air conditioning condensers, This will shield it from the street and shield the noise. I'm almost done. And then on the garage doors, we specified the lower panels to be completely opaque. The top level panel, which is shown back on A200, that's the elevation of the doors. The top one will be a white laminate glass that is opaque but will transmit just 50% of the light. And we took the door, the access door, the pedestrian door, we made that solid, a solid wood door.
Alex, can you show us the garage?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's
I think it's up.
A200. Right.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, so the garage, the only glass on that garage is the top level, and the others are now wood?
Yes.
Okay, so they're 100% solid.
Yeah, no, the bottom is still glass, but it is
Yes.
a completely opaque glass. I have a sample for you.
And that's not what we suggested.
But it would still glow.
Right.
No, it will not glow.
You said it had 50% opacity, so that it will glow.
No, the top has 50%.
It doesn't work for me.
Ooh, I passed it.
I can pass it over.
There's no sharp edges.
Okay.
This is the top.
Oh,
That is completely, yeah. It's a blackout material. So it's a 3-pane glass. It's a tri-pane.
It's not ugly, but okay.
We also, being an engineer, I took this a little step further.
Right. Now,
The-
these doors go up? There's 3 garage doors or just 2?
There are 3 garage
Okay.
doors.
Well, I'll give it to you that it's opaque.
Oh, that's, yeah. And we did a calculation, or I did the calculation, with the, this represents the field of view from the garage door to Bailey Street, the blue. I'm sorry, there should be 4.
That's okay, that's okay.
Oh, there you go. What's represented there is how much space you see on the street. It's only 34 foot. And a car going 20 miles per hour, which is, I don't know any cars that go 20 miles an hour down the street.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. It's
On that street, which is only narrow.
it's a narrow street. I would love to put speed bumps in.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to go
You've
there.
got John's ear. All right.
But the view of the garage is only in one direction. When you're traveling towards Tuckahoe, when you're traveling towards in an eastbound direction.
Okay.
And the rate of speed at 20 miles per hour, you cover 30 feet in 1 second. Think about that when you're using your phone in your car.
Okay.
So.
The board members?
Come complete with a public service announcement. I like that.
Don't get John started on speed bumps. Go ahead.
Yeah.
The material on the front door,
Front door is also.
because I know there was some discussion the last time.
I
At least
think we're
in the
making-
minutes, there was discussion about switching it to perhaps a solid door.
Solid at the bottom. We're having, can you bring up, it would be, yeah, just, Alex, if you could bring the drawing up a little bit to show the front elevation. Thank you. It should show on there, bottom pane, being solid.
By bottom
And-
pane, you mean the bottom quarter of the door where there's 3 clear panes of glass
Yes.
above it?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then you're matching that in your side lights?
Yes.
Okay.
And we did make the door on the side of the garage solid.
Okay.
And we covered light emissions on our last meeting about, for the privacy for my neighbors who are It's a nice street. We all know each other quite well.
Did we see a sample of the pewter gray windows last time? I forget.
Excuse me?
The windows, did we see a sample of the pewter gray?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. It's the Anderson E. Pewter Gray. I can bring that in again if you want to see me again.
No, it's not, if we all agreed on it last time,
No, I think we did see it.
Yeah, John's in the hallway. He's letting me go solo.
How did you manage?
Thank God.
Snacks.
Jeff?
A way to any man's heart.
It's a different design, and so,
It's cleaned up.
well, it's also a different design than, it's not traditional.
It's not traditional.
But I think it works. I think the various elements work, and.
Yeah, I know, I agree. That's why I asked about the window. There's so many windows in the front of that. I just, anything that's dark would be, it looks like a
I
tic-tac-toe
don't
board.
want it dark.
My only question is on
Sir.
the rear elevation. Remind me again why the windows above the 3 French doors are such an odd shape and style compared with the rest of the house.
You're talking about the 4 panes, the gang of 3 4 panes?
Yeah.
That's incorrect with the panes should match. Those are just picture windows anyway. They are not.
But are they?
The grills should match.
Okay.
Yes.
So we would
So
need that corrected.
Okay, we'll need to have corrective drawings of that.
Fine. It might be on a previous.
Well, previous, but these are the ones that are going to get approved. So let's see, what slide is that?
It's A201.
A201. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, 201 bottom drawing.
I think it should be there.
There. Oh.
A102?
No, 201.
201.
201.
Keep going.
Okay. Maybe you better just, there, got it. A301.
I'll go back the other way, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
That's a lovely sound, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These aren't correct either, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Jane, do you
drew
have
mine
comments?
in.
I can draw them in if that's.
Well, actually,
I have very good.
no, that's fine, but it does have to be signed off by the architect. So what we could, I'm sorry, is Jane commenting?
No.
No, I'm fine.
You're an engineer?
Yes. Uh-oh.
I think he can alter them.
Okay.
I'm not licensed here.
Then he cannot alter them.
So all we need from you, sir, is a set of updated plans correcting those windows. Everybody else is okay with the garage doors with all the glass? Everybody else is okay with the clear front door?
So Robert,
No, the bottom will be.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
three, it's,
understood.
I'm calling it a 3/1. You've got sort of 3 clear panels and 1 solid corner.
Understood.
Okay?
so in those
Top 3.
top, there'll be mullions.
I
in the
can
middle
call
of
Joe.
each
He'll
one?
do it now.
Yeah.
He's on standby.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, well, we can approve it.
Well, I think we
with
can
the
approve it
stipulation.
pending the receipt of updated documents. That's right, Alice.
Tomorrow.
That's fine by me.
Is-
All right.
What time?
Was
do you
there public comment? Or did I ask already? I'm new at this. All right.
Thank you.
Any other comment?
Nope.
Okay. Then I'm going to move, we actually accept, what is my, so I don't get this all correct here.
Where do you want the drawings electronically or?
We'll have to have real
Full
sets, because
plans.
we have
Done.
to stamp them. We're going to have to have 2 sets, because we have to stamp, we have to stamp them.
Full size sets?
I'm going to move that we accept the, what am I saying?
43 Bailey Road?
43 Bailey
43
Road, pending
Bailey
pending receipt of updated drawings.
Can you just specify what the
Which,
changes are, please?
Pardon? Updated drawings that specify the 3, which currently 4 over 4 pane windows, a gang of 3 4 pane windows in the rear, 2 full mullioned windows in the rear elevation of the house.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. That was very
Oh,
fast.
Okay.
I got it.
Can you type?
Okay.
Right.
Pending receipt of updated plans with corrected mullion patterns
Okay,
in rear elevation windows.
okay.
Okay, do I have a
Okay.
second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Can I, do I get an aye?
Nay.
No.
I just think it's an ugly house. I don't like it.
Okay.
It's like, I understand everyone's in agreement, but I'm
All right.
voting nay.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
I'll have.
Mr. Chairman, we'll need you to come to
Building
the
department.
to sign those plans when they arrive.
Great. Okay, so next up is 20 Hillcrest, but that was that a prior request for adjournment
No,
to
it's a
January
current
3rd?
request.
This is a new request.
Okay.
understand
I move
the-
that we accept the applicant's request for 20 Hillcrest to an adjournment to January 23rd. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're going to move to new matters. The first one being 134 Haregrove Road LLC, and our affidavits in order.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
We're gonna
And
set
you're
a new-
back.
We're gonna set a new record there. We're gonna
Okay.
beat the old record. Melissa Dedovich, Peconic Environmental Associates. I'm here on behalf of 134 Herrick Road. Unfortunately, we did not know that tonight you were supposed to bring, but this is another one, very quick mod. All you have to do is open up this one.
Hold. Alex, do you have these plans?
I can put it,
Let me take a
they're the
look.
renderings. Oh, we have a larger scale. We have a larger scale we can put down on the table if we have to.
Let's just see if we have the plans. This camera is currently inoperable. This is what the problem is.
Still?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the.
Apparently,
Do you want me to
we have
hold?
overhead cameras with supply chain
Okay,
issues.
I will once again be Vanna White, and I'm joined by Christian Reichart from Douglas Wright Architects, and
Okay.
we will explain.
There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Perfect. And actually, these show the before and after also, because you like those.
Mhm. We do.
So what we're looking at right now is actually the proposed, and this is, okay,
That's the after.
that's the after. But
This is the existing on the top here.
this is no, this is what was approved by
Yes.
by the board before. The only difference is the two gable windows.
Yes.
Before they were vertical, and we refined them to be more in line with the rest of the windows in the house that are more, all the lights are square. And then the second proposed revision is that we had the pebbled ash between.
Can I be clear and say this isn't actually a proposed, because this exists? You've built this house. Are they, are these panels up?
No, it's not.
Okay, are the windows that are currently in the house the new ones or the old ones?
These are all the same as proposed. We
Okay.
haven't touched that.
Okay.
This is not, the windows are not changing. Nothing on the windows is changing.
it's
With the exception of-
What you see currently, if you drive by, is that the space between the windows was supposed to be pebbled ash, and
Yeah.
we're proposing it to be painted wood panels.
Okay.
That's the only difference. The windows are remaining exactly as
The only-
proposed.
well,
the
this
action-
is right, the two windows up here were more rectangular than more
Yes.
square.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
It's two
Okay.
tiny
So it's just
windows.
the trim out that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. And have the panels that are in the lower been actually installed yet?
Nothing is
Nothing.
installed. It's just,
Okay, it's just painted behind it right now?
it's,
Okay.
no, right now it's not even painted. I believe it has just the, you see the blue cover of the
Okay.
insulation.
Okay,
And that's it.
that's it?
Yeah.
Board members?
I like this. I totally agree with your, the
The proportions of it.
yes, the proportions of the windows on the eaves. These, yeah. And I actually like this better than the original plan. I think it looks much more traditional to me, to have the trim and the trim along the windows matching the
Right.
window. So I think it's fine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, ditto.
Jeff? Ditto?
I'll agree.
Okay. I think since I was the one that was questioning the pebble before, that I'll agree. But let's go to public comment. Public comment. Okay, we have none. But just so I'm clear, the windows that are currently in that house are what you're calling proposed, not existing, because they were changed, right?
The only
windows
that are changing that changed were these two. The other
Right.
are all original.
Right, but the two that are in the house right now are still what you're calling proposed, not the original approved side.
they've been installed. I haven't been there
Okay. All right. I think, I think it's a beautiful house, and I actually think these changes are an improvement, so I think it's great. A new record, 2 records. That's because you're winning. All right, please. All right, so I'm going to move, we accept the application for 134 Herrick Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to 101 Old Town Road, single-family dwelling with a detached garage with breezeway and a 14-by-8 gazebo.
I don't have affidavits on this one.
Good. So are they here? We have no affidavits?
We are flying.
We do have a hand raised on Zoom.
Okay.
The dog.
So the question, so it would be the affidavits are not in order.
Indeed.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Maria D'Angelo. Good evening. I'm the applicant. I just received a call from my architect. About 30 minutes ago, we had a family emergency.
Yep.
His father is ill, so
I'm sorry.
he asked me to just ask for a postponement
We-
to
we-
the next.
Great, we're happy to, I'm sorry, and we're happy to do that. One thing to note before the next meeting is we don't have the proper affidavits on our file, but if the architect was called away, he was probably going to bring them today. So just, when we move this forward, please do me a favor and just ask the architect to remember to get us the affidavits so we can take jurisdiction in the next meeting.
Very good. He did tell me in the phone call that he had the affidavits.
Okay,
Because
that
I
makes
said,
sense.
maybe I could handle this, and he said, no, they won't. You absolutely need the affidavits.
Can he just
so-
email me pictures of them or just something? I mean, I need to see them.
Yeah.
We can't
Sure. I know he's on his way.
I'm sorry to bother him in this time, but
Yeah. Can I do that? I mean, I'll send him an email tonight for tomorrow. Is
Yeah.
that all right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
All
And
right.
again, I'm sorry for your troubles, but I'm going to move that we accept your request for adjournment.
as so long as we receive those
So long
affidavits
as
tonight.
long as they receive the affidavits for.
So let's do that motion later.
Okay.
When we can.
Oh,
So am I
shall I
adjourning them
text
now?
him now then to ask him to try to get those affidavits?
We're
to
not, you know what, we
I
can't,
don't-
I
we
need to
can't
see
take
them
possession,
tonight.
so I don't have to adjourn it, so.
You need to see them tonight.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can't take jurisdiction in order to adjourn until I've seen them.
Got it. I only see SHV, MAC, MINI. Is there an, I'm sorry, I don't know who that is who's asking for the affidavits to be sent.
My name is Alice Cooley. My email address is Cooley, COOLEY, @southamptonvillage.org.
Very good. Okay.
And-
ACOOLEY at southamptonvillage.org. Okay,
Correct.
I'll send him an email right now.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're sorry for the trouble, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up then is 301 Murray Place LLC for 301 Murray Place demolition of existing and new structures.
Thanks.
Good evening for the applicant, John Bennett. And with me from Bennett Reed on Windmill Lane, I've given Alice the originals of the affidavits of mailing and posting. They were previously sent, copies of it were sent. I'm here this evening with Viola Rohani from Stella Lamont, Jonathan Subject from Stella Lamont, Marta Elbranda from Stella Lamont, the project architects, Thaxton Crandall from LaGuardia Design, and Lisa Poya from Twin Forks Permitting. What I want to do just very quickly, very quickly, because I want you to be able to get right to the heart of the presentation, but what I do have is, so that you can see, it's an area of mixed architecture, a lot of very
Yes.
some stuff that's modern,
Yes.
traditional form, but not necessarily additional materials.
Yeah. Please understand that we've all driven down the street and looked at these houses.
No,
Okay.
I'm sure you have. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that that was in the record. I'm not even gonna go through them. You'll look at them
We
and
know
you'll
them,
see
yeah.
that there's a lot of, other than to say, I mean, just the first couple of grabs, the first two. There's the house, which is a Stella Lamont Rohani house right in front of it. There's the waterfront house in front of it.
Yep.
And then to the east is the Jacobson house, which is
Yep.
a Tim Haynes design. And the other homes are all, you could argue that there are some traditional forms gables, but they're clearly not.
There's a little of everything down
Yeah,
that street.
that's all. That's all.
Especially the house that used to be a chicken coop. Yes. Know the street well. Okay,
All right, I'll let them discuss.
great. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Subject. I'm with Stella Lamont Rahani Architects.
Great. Okay.
And with me is Martha.
If you could just go to the microphone for me.
Hi, my name is Marta Branda. I'm with Stella Lamont Rahani also.
Great, thank you. Okay.
I think we'll maybe start with the rendering.
If you could actually, as much as you can, present to the screen drawings, because those are going out to the public.
So that's fine. You can start with the site plan. So starting with the site plan, so okay. So the application before you is to demolish the existing residence and build a new residence. So, I'm sorry, do you want to bring the site plan back up? Martha has it here. So, on the site plan, you can see, is it possible to zoom in on the house? Right, so if you see the highlighted red outline, that's the current existing outline of the existing house. And so what we're doing here, the footprint and the long house as presented is, so the setbacks just to the west of us, there's a wetlands, and it creates an 80-foot setback. So what we're proposing to do is bring everything back in line to the...
There's no wetland.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a pond. There's a pond there.
Careful with that.
So that creates the building footprint. Exactly. That's why we have John, right? And so so what we're proposing to do is bring everything back into conformance with the current code.
Yep.
So that creates sort of a longer, more narrow house. So we're also proposing, the driveway was recently redone, but we're proposing a new driveway. Parking is in the front. So if we can go to those renderings, starting from the road view, the first one that you had brought up. The hedges, this property is a very private property. There's an 11-foot hedge that actually wraps the entire property. So this is as you're driving past. This would be directly east of the residence. So as you come down the road, there's really no view of the house from the road. This is just out inside of that hedge. So this would be the east elevation. There's limited glass on this side, kind of keeping with what the existing architecture was. So we wanted to have a little bit of glass as you enter. Presents the entry, and there's a nice stair. But most of the east facade on the lower level is solid. On the, I do have some materials here. So we're proposing a few different materials on this house. If we can go back to that entry view. Right, so on the right-hand side, the right form, we're proposing this, it's a clay tile. And these actually stack. So these are handmade, and then they would actually be, they overlapped in a series. So they reflect kind of the, more current architecture, the aesthetic of like a shingle style. And you guys want to take a look at that?
No, it's
Actually,
interesting how
yes.
you've just
Just
described
That's
it.
going to go
Frankly, it's a little more out of curiosity, but yeah, can I see that?
here
So
or
Actually really nice. It
it'll
has a
be-
lot of character because they're...
So it'll be installed like a clapboard?
It does, yeah, so like...
So this is the wrap that goes all the way over the box form on the.
It does.
South side, okay.
So we're actually proposing this coming up the wall, over the roof, and then down the other side.
But it's an overlap, like it's like
It is.
a clapboard kind of thing.
Yeah, typically it's done...
Significantly.
Interesting.
Also weighs 5,000 pounds.
Yeah, really, that's gonna be one
I
in
don't
every
know.
house.
Thank you. I don't know who your steel worker is, but good luck with that. All right.
Well, yeah. That's to be determined.
That's heavy.
But yeah, so
That
it
makes
does start at
E-Pay,
about
that
a
makes
3-inch
E-Pay
height,
feel
and
light.
so it allows-
That's how heavy it
cool.
is. All right.
And then to complement that, on the other side, you mentioned E-Pay, we are using E-Pay. Both of them would be done in a rain screen type application. So the idea is to just, leave it, let it weather naturally. And so those two would complement each other. And then also in the landscape using a stone, nice limestone, that also complements that.
Oh, I see, okay.
The next rendering. So here you have a south view. Lower level, on the lower level, what you would see is that's actually a screen room. So that's why it's mostly open. It actually opens up to the site. Those would be allowed to let the breeze in. The upper floor there is a small balcony with a glass handrail. And then the south is the beautiful view, so that's why we have a lot of glass on the south. Go to the next slide. So this is the view from the west. You're actually looking from where the hedge would be as well, but there's the pool enclosure, and then looking back towards the west facade, we do have glass on the first floor. Those would be hinged doors that would open up, allow the view to, the view and the breeze to come in. And then upstairs is where the bedrooms are. Again, that's the same material, the clay that's wrapping up and over. Next slide. So this is the north. So we have a lot of really mature, and Baxter can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're linden trees. And it was very important to the client to keep them.
Good.
So yeah, so they're beautiful trees.
Linden trees are gorgeous.
Yeah. So I believe there's 2 in this entry court. So as you come in, you go around the driveway, and so the house is pretty well tucked behind them. So it's kind of off. And even if I think we have some existing conditions of the photos. So as you enter, you don't really see the house at the gate. You have to come around the driveway. You're presented with these beautiful trees, and then the house is sort of tucked in behind them. Go to the next view.
What about exterior lighting? I don't see anything on the,
We've been kind of getting away from that. Of course, we'll have the lights over the doors that we're
like
required to.
ambient light that,
Yeah, but we haven't been doing that much lighting on the exterior.
interesting.
So this is the new, so as part of that proposal, it was listed there as a new driveway. So this driveway up until that parking court is existing. It was redone this past summer. And so that parking court now that's getting added is, it's added to allow for this new design, parking. They would come through, I believe there might be one more rendering of the entry. Yeah, there we go. So that parking court you saw is just to the right of this, which would be the north. So you park, and then you kind of come through this path, and then that, they'll do the landscaping there, and then it allows for a nice, beautiful entry.
I have one question.
Sure.
For now. In your southern exposure, those were originally 2 houses around 1 lot. And what's being built in front of this now is a very modern house that's sitting on the ocean. So when you have that second floor all glass window that heads at that house, what screens you for both privacy and any potential light pollution to the house in front of it?
We don't actually have screening, and the reason we don't is there's a master plan. We're actually doing the other house as well on 317.
Controlled by the same.
Right.
And it'll maintain the same way it was before, that one family maintains both structures?
That's correct.
Okay.
They're 2 separate lots.
Yeah.
It always has been.
Yeah.
It's controlled, they're.
That's what it was before, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So so we have that beautiful hedge around 3 sides, but on the 4th side, at this time,
At this
they'd
time, it'd be
prefer
open.
not to put it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
and will a landscaping plan be presented as a part of this submission, or is that going to?
I believe they're here.
Okay, well, we could wait, unless you want to see it now.
Why don't we comment on the architecture, and then we'll go to landscape? I think that's a good idea, John. Comments?
No, Mark's concern was the same as mine. I would typically have as my mother would say, a conniption fit over the amount of glass on the back of the house, but in this case,
Yeah, I mean, it's really catering, so, and LaGuardia Thaxton can speak to that, but if you go back to that rear view.
that's a beautiful house. I mean, the design
Thank you.
is.
So, and we can see it there too. So one of the reasons we have the glass, so, of course we were concerned about the neighbors, and, the pool is there. We're proposing to make the pool a little bit smaller, more conforming as well. But, so as you exit the west side of it, we have the glass there because there's a little dining court, and then you have the pool, and then that's all, there's 3 beautiful linden trees that are right there as well.
I mean, what's interesting is this becomes part of a collection of very contemporary homes in that area.
Right.
And hopefully 50, 60 years from now, someone will be looking out for the protection of those houses as well.
We hope so.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jeff?
yeah, more than that, it's cool, it's stunning, and it's simple.
Jane?
Pleasantly surprised again?
Before we move on to landscape design, I think your choice and use of materials, especially new materials, is great. It's nice to know that those 2 houses still remain in that sort of relationship to each other with that open space, because that lawn is pretty spectacular. I think it's beautiful in simplicity. I normally go crazy over all glass front doors, because I just feel like you can't find the front door when they're all glass. But in this particular case, I think it works. I think it's a beautifully done, modern, restrained house that, to John's point, sits very well at the end of that street, because now we've gone from having very large houses to more modern houses that live in nice symmetry with each other. So I think it looks great.
Great.
Now let's understand what the landscape looks like.
You're on.
Good evening, Thaxton Crandall with LaGuardia Design Group. Just to touch on a few points, the site design really is driven by those existing lindens, super important to the client. As a landscape architect, they're super important to my heart. We really maintained the footprint of a lot of the existing structures, the pool terrace. They're all relatively within the same location. In fact, the pool's getting slightly smaller. So we're really maintaining a lot of what's there. And those lindens really act to kind of frame those spaces while also providing privacy to the neighbors. Yeah, happy to
Great.
answer any other questions, specifics.
Jane, any questions?
It's great.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any public comment? Okay. I'm going to move, since someone has objections, I'm going to move we accept the application for 301 Murray Place. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You know
Well done,
how
thank you.
unusual this is, right?
Thank you.
No, it speaks to the having a complete plan. It's
Sophisticated, it's well planned, it's
it's
beautiful materials, and it's
good
perfect,
job.
and it fits well into its landscape. All right, that takes us up to 37 Pheasant Close West.
Mr. Chairman, there was some correspondence on this application that you should have in front of you. I had asked the applicant to confirm that there would be somebody here tonight. I heard that one of their...
There is.
Oh, okay, well, great, well then maybe they can speak to this application.
Here's my question for you before you begin. Are you presenting the entire house or just the front porch?
Just the front porch.
I'm going to ask that we don't do this tonight, because as an architecture review board, we don't piecemeal the application. So I'm going to ask that you take the time, because you've had time, a month since the last meeting, so I'm going to ask that you guys take the time and present us the entire property at once versus piece by piece.
Okay.
So do I need to adjourn this, Alice? Okay. I move we adjourn the application for the 37 Pheasant Close. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll see you next time, because I know there's some issues with the back porch, and they have moved the garage, so we'd like to see the entire property at once.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then next up is 242 Toilsome Lane, one-story entry addition, and the demolition of a one-story sunroom chimney and bay window. Is the applicant present? Have a
Do you
good
have
night.
affidavits, Lisa?
Lisa's here.
They were dropped off with Derek.
Okay, let's pull,
That's Derek.
let's pull the file,
Okay,
please.
all right, hold on a second.
They were
And this
dropped off with Derek
is-
this afternoon.
While we're waiting to check the file, did you get an email with for the last
I got an
property?
email.
So what do we need to do?
We gotta wait to see if they send them.
Okay, so I'm doing nothing for you on this.
Nothing, I'll
Okay.
tell you.
I'm here to help you, but I'm doing nothing for you on this, okay.
Even if you could email them to me, Lisa.
I can. I can go do it. I mean, if you want them tonight, I can go stop at my office and do it. Otherwise, I can. Oh, you have?
Oh, can I see them, please? I'm trapped.
Is this where we say the affidavits are in order?
Thank you, Jeff.
That's my line.
That was a question. Is this where we say?
So, the affidavits are in order.
There we go. Little levity. All right. Please introduce yourself.
Lisa Zaloga, I'm the architect for the applicant,
Okay.
and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to try and do this
But
myself.
you're going to make it happen. I have faith, Lisa.
I think next time I'm just going to stay at my office. It'll be easier. Okay, so let's see. Share my screen. Right. Did I do that? Maybe.
You have to click the file first, or the tab.
Are you in, Lisa?
I think so, yeah. Oh, okay, there we go. Let's see how it goes. Share.
There you go. Something's happening.
We'll see how this works. Okay, so.
Voila.
Voila.
There you go.
Whoops, but I gotta move this stuff out of the way.
Are we looking at your project or your vacation home? What are we doing here?
Watch it. All right, let's see. Okay, so this is, I guess we can start with the survey. Okay. So this is an existing, primarily one-story residence on the corner of Toilsome and Pierpont. So the residence is one story. There is an existing garage that faces Pierpont. The doors face Pierpont, and that's actually a little two-story portion. Our goal is, our goal is to move the garage doors that currently face Pierpont and put them around on the north side of the house. So thereby closing off that second driveway. And you can see that on the west elevation, the removal of the doors. There's also on the south side of the property, there's a little one-story gazebo-type flat roof structure that at some point was built. We would like to remove that as well. And we will also be removing a chimney and a fireplace that is on the south side of the house also. And our goal is to create a little 55 square foot entry foyer. The entry is kind of in the corner of the two wings, if you will. And it has a flat roof currently with a little railing on it. So we'd like to create, make that interior space. That's about 55 square feet. So the west elevation is basically a change in the relocation of the garage doors. If I can, I don't know why I can't make it. There we go. The south elevation, this is the chimney structure that we're removing, and we're going to open it up with a 4-panel door and some windows. And then you can see that little one-story gazebo room that was added. We're going to remove that and have three pairs of double-hung windows there. There's also a little bay window that's off on the end of the building. It's kind of a very rambling structure. It, has a lot of jigs and jogs. And we'd like to get rid of that little bay window and a door. That's actually the master bathroom, and that, so we want to get rid of that and just make it a triple window there.
Lisa, did you submit a survey or a site plan?
I did.
Yeah, that would be nice to see.
Yeah, do you have it?
Do you have set it
I
up?
do. Hold on. That was the
Because
first thing I
it
started
wasn't
with.
distributed.
That's the survey. This is the survey. I can also hand you up one if you'd like.
No, I've got a survey. Did you do a site plan?
No, it's on here. The structures and everything were shown on the survey, so I didn't do a site plan.
Okay.
You can see here, he shows where that dotted little piece of gazebo is to be removed. And he's dotted in where that chimney is to be removed.
Oh, right.
And he's dotted in where that little bay window is to be removed. And then he shows you the little addition in the kind of crux of the L shape of the house. And then you can see where the driveway currently came in off of Pierpont, and we're going to close that up, make it grass, and kind of just reconfigure the driveway a little bit to have the garage doors on the north side.
Yeah, it's kind of a wonky.
It's a very odd
Yeah.
house. It's very rambling. You have to kind of find your way.
Yeah. Sorry. That's another one of my mother's words.
So this is a picture of the back of the house. That's this chimney right here is what's going to be removed, and that's where the 4-panel doors are going to be. This little structure over here is where is the gazebo that's being removed.
So if anything, it's kind of like unifying the design between the miscellaneous.
Yes.
Structures.
And you're walking, okay, so, and just walk me through.
This is
in
the
your
entry. Current.
In your south elevations, you've got vertical tongue and groove cedar boards, you've got the rest of it shingle.
Everything's going to be shingled, except for he wanted to do something with the garage being that it's such a different element. We want to change that up a little bit on the 2-story portion. So the house will be shingled, and then the garage will just be vertical boards, also cedar.
Okay. Okay, board members?
I have no objections.
Yeah, I don't see anything glaring at me that's a problem.
I was going to say, it looks like whatever you do is going to be an improvement.
Yeah.
I don't know how to take that, but thank you.
That's a good thing, right? So,
All right, yeah, I don't think I have any objection. I mean, honestly, it's a little hard to understand without the plan, but now that I've seen the survey, it makes a little bit more sense, but okay.
You should have the plan. You should have the plan too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, just a survey. It's the lot itself that makes the house kind of interesting.
It's an odd-shaped house, the way it sort of wanders around the house.
Yes.
I get it. When I was
I think it was
wandering
added on to quite a
Yeah.
few times in
Yeah.
a rambling sort of fashion.
It's a little
All the
one of
houses on
one
the
of
street
these,
are
one of those,
situated
I
in.
get it. Okay, public comment. All right, as there are no objections from the board, I'm going to move that we accept the application for 242 Toilsome Lane for a 1-story addition and demolition of a sunroom, chimney, and bay window. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Have fun.
You too.
Okay, so next up, we're down to driveway gates, 70 Great Plains Road.
Good evening, board members.
Do you benefit, that's the driveway.
I'm Lauren Reisner. I'm here with my wife, Mimi Reisner.
Hello.
I have affidavits on this.
What?
They're in order.
You have updates and they're in order, because I forgot to ask.
Yeah, we worked very hard on this.
Okay.
It's done.
Thank you. So we're seeking approval of a driveway gate at our home at 70 Great Plains Road, which we
Yep.
love very much. The proposed gate was designed and will be built by Peconic Gate, which we understand is an experienced gate designer and builder, and actually built the gate at our former home in Watermill. And we believe that the gate proposal meets all of the applicable requirements. We respectfully request your approval and are happy to answer any questions.
Do you guys have a picture? Does somebody, Alec, do you have a file on this, or does somebody have a file?
Yeah. I especially like the rendering with the deer.
With the what?
A nice touch.
This is the rendering with the deer? Okay. Would you take me through the materials, the height, the width, and the transparency, please?
I'm going to hand this over to Minnie.
Here you go.
Okay.
Thank you all. I know it's been a long night. We read the code carefully. My husband is a very diligent lawyer, and it is 40% transparent, as is required, I guess, from your July 22nd onward. It is mahogany, and the slats or the pickets are are 1.5 inches.
Okay.
Less than 2 inches.
Yes,
Okay, and the height?
is 6 feet.
Is that 6 foot 6 inches at the pier and 6 feet on the gate?
I'm sorry?
6 feet 6 inches on the pier from ground and 6 feet on the gate?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's 20 feet from...
Correct, correct. The setback was 20 feet, exactly.
Okay.
And we don't want any, sorry.
Lights and mechanisms are the
No.
next questions.
No lights, no lights at all, and also no keypad, just a drive-in, which was our old gate as well.
Okay.
As soon as you hit, the pad, it opens.
It was pressure activated?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be correct.
Nice.
Well done. Okay, board members?
Yeah, how big is the lot?
The survey is here. It's rather, I guess, I don't want to say large, but it's large compared to our old house. 1.827 acres. Our old house was a beautiful mid-century modern. Where's our survey?
Yeah, I think it's
1.8
1
acres.
point, I think it's about 1.9 acres.
Yeah.
2
that's what
acres?
said.
I can look at it for you if you want.
I think it's about 2 acres.
Just under 2 acres. I
Like
handed
I
it to
said,
you.
why the
I never
policy?
get nervous, and
No,
you
no,
guys
I
are
know.
making me nervous.
It's pretty low key.
Thank you.
John, any questions?
No, I think it's fine, based on the size of the lot and the transparency of the materials. Very simple, very...
That was,
It's 1.827 acres.
Okay.
Jane?
Okay, no objections from me.
Okay. I have to say this, as you know, we started a policy where we're trying to get gates to be shorter, and our policy is we like to be an average height of 4.5 feet. In this particular case, given the size, we also adjust a little bit based on the size, and since this is a 2-acre property and the scale of this particular gate to the scale of the house, the board feels is appropriate, but I do want to put that into the public record, because what we're trying not to have Southampton become is a world of privet fences and solid gates that people can't see above. We like to maintain this, the open feel that we are Southampton. So we'll put that out.
The color?
The color is
Mahogany.
is natural mahogany, I
Okay.
believe.
No, we plan to paint it white.
Oh, it's white,
Right.
okay.
Or perhaps I've also brought, this was our other question for you, but I would love to,
we're deciding whether to paint it white or dark green.
here's the color, may I approach you?
Of course.
It's
It's
Yeah.
rarefied space
I
here.
have communication
No,
with
that's
the
okay.
lawyer, you
I-
think that would be better than this?
I do have marks where people
I
have
do
been
neither.
Yeah,
touching,
and that's
approaching
on my
me with
hand
10-foot
because
poles.
It's this wonderful, it's used often in East Hampton, we noticed a bunch on
It's
First
like
Ave,
black
too.
green is what I
Yes.
call it.
Exactly.
It's lovely,
What,
it blends in.
what I'm also going to say here is, you guys determine which one you think is best,
We
and
prefer
you
this
tell
one, if
us.
this is, we prefer this.
Okay.
if- as
So
long
which
as-
one is it? The
Board
bottom one?
members?
Yes, and actually, I did my own little painting experiment. But it's black
Well,
green.
you're
Yeah.
you
It
come
looks like-
prepared.
This
Well,
is
be
so-
careful, it looks like it's
I
not
know, but
dry.
this is
No
so
one
much
touch-
easier than the
No one touch it
800-pound brick
because
we had a
I'm
minute
afraid it will
ago.
get on your clothing,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
just want to make sure.
All right.
And what relationship is this color to the house? Or is there?
The house is a light gray, but it's lovely, I find.
Beautiful
we
color,
noticed-
yeah.
We noticed a couple on First Neck, we did a big tour here.
Okay.
And this forest green blends in with the hedges, and
Yeah.
it's so transparent. The white
I
can
like
be-
Yeah.
that better than the white.
the white's
Yeah.
very
Yeah, I don't like
jarring.
the-
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the white can be really jarring in
Yeah.
a
I
hedge, it
agree.
almost
Okay.
interrupts
Right.
it in an odd way.
You wouldn't consider just leaving it natural and let it gray?
You know, the trouble is, we were thought about it, I feel like this with a hedge is kind of lovely, so.
Are they privet or
It's privet.
privet?
It's
Because
just
they
privet.
lose their leaves in the fall.
I know, it is true. But it's simple and we feel it's elegant. There's a couple of East Hampton, a couple on First Neck, so I can go further back.
Now you have to go back to the microphone because
Yeah.
they.
And you can keep, yeah, there you
No,
go.
we,
There's some that color on,
We'll
I
put
need
this
the
in-
name
say
and
something.
number on the color.
It's the bottom one, right?
Yes,
okay.
it's called
Okay, we'll
Black
put this
Forest.
in the.
It's called.
Jane, how do you feel?
Otherwise known as
I'd
green
love
black.
to see the wood, but I understand if you want to paint it dark green, I'm fine with that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
But, well, I agree. I would rather see it natural. But if you know, if dark green is what you, I mean, I like the dark green. I think it looks great on shutters on a White House too, that really dark green.
It's a lovely color. It's almost fine.
I think it's fine.
Okay,
John?
Thank you.
Jeff?
No objection.
All right. Do I have any public comment? I'm going to move, we accept the applicant's.
Written decision.
What?
Written decision.
I'm going to move that we
Sorry.
move to written decision on driveway gates for 70 Great Plains Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I like the show and tell, that was fun.
You don't have to appear, but the board will adopt it at the next meeting, so on 123.
Thanks again for your help.
All right. Just did that thing where I filed. That is our last.
Oh, no, I think there's
40
one more.
North
Is there one more?
Driveway, wait,
40 North Main driveway gate?
I think it was.
Pretty North Main.
There's another historic driveway gate.
Okay. There's two. Okay, so 40 North Main Street. Is the applicant here?
It's Michael Marin. Is he
Okay.
on Zoom?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the applicant is not here?
Is he on Zoom?
He's on Zoom?
No? Okay. Well, I will say that I have affidavits on this, if
Okay.
you want to take
And are they in
jurisdiction.
order?
They are in order.
Okay. So I'm going to move that we adjourn.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate,
All right.
Michael.
I'm gonna move we adjourn to next meeting, the application for 40 North, gates at 40 North Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of
Are we really
reviews.
almost
Now we're
finished
up
by
to, now we're
9:30?
up to
It's like
the
a-
landmark designation review for the Bethel Church, which I believe we have tabled.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's the,
That's
what's the,
tabled?
I have
What's this-
to just re-engage with them, and I think Sammy is involved. And
Yes.
just make them more involved
yeah,
in the process. That's what we agreed to.
yeah.
We had put it out, and they'd come and they'd ask that we re-engage and have a little dialogue with them before we move forward. Just, I think they want to understand.
Which is understandable, but it's
Yes.
also been
But
3
but
months.
also,
It has been 3 months.
they want to move
Yeah.
forward on, they're developing some plans
Which
for
is,
that.
it's all great.
Which actually
Yeah.
might come before the planning board and some other boards.
So right now it's tabled pending Jeff's outreach
Okay.
and further information. Okay? So that takes us to the pre-submission conference for And By the Way Trust.
Sorry, is the board adjourning that to the next meeting?
Well, I'm not,
I think we're tabling it pending, or can we do that, or do we just have to adjourn to the next meeting?
Well, I
Well,
think,
we just want to know how to write the next agenda.
Okay,
I think you should vote on adjournment, pick a date.
okay.
You can push it out.
Let's push it out. What's 2 meetings from now, February,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
are we February 9th,
13th?
13th?
February 13th would be the second Monday in February.
Okay, so I move that we adjourn the landmark designation review for 209 Windmill Lane to February 13th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alice happy?
Very.
Thank you.
It matters. All right. And now we're up to And By the Way Trust, 88 Gin Lane. Hello, my friends.
Hello. Good evening. John Rose for the applicant.
Anthony Pasca, counsel for the applicant.
So, in an effort to keep it brief, I figured just do a really quick timeline of how we got here today, if that's okay?
Yep.
Just serves as a reminder that in May in '21, we submitted our drawing to the ARB requesting permission to move the building onto a new foundation. At that time, the board said that we'd like to see what it is you propose. We came back in May of 2022. Prior to that, we received a letter from the building department requesting that the building be secured from water, because we had some water intrusion. That repair was done, and we ran that by Tin, and he was comfortable with the work that was done. We then had the pre-submission conference on November 22nd. We submitted the plans, the elevations, the details, the site plan, surveys, on an informal level for this pre-submission meeting. And at that meeting, we decided it would really be great if every one of you weren't there at the time, but could come and take a look at the building. And as you may recall, everyone went. You joined us, as did Alex as well, in 2 different hearings, of course, because you can't all be together at the same time.
For the record.
Thank you.
For the record, I just wanted to clarify. Also, you had asked a question about, can the building physically be moved? In your folder, you should have a letter from the engineer saying that that is structurally possible. And then on December in '22, Tom Edmonds, Executive Director of the Southampton History Museum, submitted a letter. I assume you have that in your file? I don't know if you feel it should be read or not. It's entirely up to you. That's
He
just
might
the
be
history.
here. He
What?
might be on Zoom, Tom. He was on Zoom earlier.
Oh, that would be great.
I don't know.
But I have copies of his letter if you need it. But I think you have it all?
Actually, why don't you throw us copies, because I don't think, Jane, I don't think you,
No, I don't
other than
have-
Jane, seen
I
it.
don't have
This is
it.
new for Jane, we need to get her up to speed. We actually need to help her get up to speed.
And where on Gin Lane? Where's 88?
It's Gin Lane between South Main and Little Plains.
Okay.
It's when you drive down, it's the big barn that faces, the 14-stall horse barn that faces north-south, just west of
Yeah,
it.
it's the end that's facing the street.
You have all of our documents if the site plan is of any value, and I brought, of course,
We can share it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
and that's just a letter from
Yeah.
Tom Ed. You have in your file
Yeah.
this drawing here, which is the site plan and all the elevations. We can gladly bring the elevations up if you think that's of value, but that hasn't changed.
No.
Well, for Jane,
Where are you
Okay,
moving it to?
Jane.
Where are you moving it to?
Okay,
They want
so
to pick up,
that's
there've been a couple of proposals.
Thank you, Alice.
Sure. So our goal is to pick it up and rotate it 90 degrees. Currently, the primary elevation faces west. You can see it over the hedges, but the primary beautiful elevation, Alex, is there any chance of pulling those elevations up? We called the building department this morning, and they said that they would have them up, so I'm sorry about that we don't have them on computer, but we were.
Well, now I want to know who.
Now Alex wants to know who you talked to at the building department. I know where that's going.
My office did.
Let me see.
But I have a Vanna White as well. I got it. Not quite as good as the other one, though.
Hey.
even better.
Let me see.
So, actually, I'm sorry, if I can.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alex has it.
There, oh, Alex has it. Sorry.
There we go.
Perfect.
Thanks, Alex.
Alex, thank you very much.
No problem.
John, let me have that while you're talking, because for Jane, if you look at it, the real one here is,
Would you like to reduce for anything?
no, for right now, this is fine. I think it just helps. If you really want to see what's going on here, there we go. The idea is to pick it up and turn it 45 degrees. Okay?
To give you an idea of the setbacks, the front yard setback by code is 80 feet. Our actual building is 18.1 feet. We're proposing it to be 82.8 feet. The side yard to the east, minimum side yard is 35 feet. The existing side yard is 15.8 feet. We're proposing to make it 78.4 feet. So our proposal is putting the building in a conforming location. The rear yard is 100 foot. The actual building is 231. The proposed building is 234. Jeffrey, I remember when we were together on the site, there was a question about how far it's going forward. And in fact, we're going further from the ocean by a foot or two. So we're trying to preserve as much of the backyard as possible. One of the things that was really interesting, and I don't know those of you that came in by car, that your gate code requires gates to be 18 foot off of the pavement and swing in. The building is 18.1 feet from the property edge, so the gate.
Yes, but let's be fair, you have all sorts of frontage down Gin, you could simply move the driveway and carry
And in this site plan, we show a second entrance, but there is a lovely colonnade of trees that goes down that, and in your
Yeah.
file, you have pictures of
Yep.
that. Would you like me to go further into the
Yeah.
GFA and all that?
Yeah.
Sure. So then, the GFA, current is 8,882. The allowable GFA is 14,314. We in fact are only building 12,150. We could expand it 2,100 square feet more than we're actually building. I wanted to just touch base on moving historic structures, because that was an issue that everybody discussed, and I understand. 41 Gin Lane, Sunnymead, my office and your board approved for us to move that building. 5 Gin Lane, which is the windmill. We're all familiar with the windmill in the village. That was originally built in Shelter Island. It was then moved to Hampton Bays, as a working windmill, and then it was decommissioned and moved to 5 Gin Lane in 1880. 249 South Main Street, the Halsey House, perhaps the oldest house anywhere. That building was rotated on its property in 1730. The Pelletreau Silver Shop, also rotated in the Pelletreau Silver Shop rotated in 1890 to face Main Street. Rogers Mansion was also relocated. To the best of my knowledge, all those buildings still have their landmark status. We had talked about this building. The village isn't going to allow a 16-stall horse barn ever again in the village. So it's about repurposing it. And the best way to repurpose this and make sure that it stays around forever, not just a couple hundred years, to rotate it, put it in a proper full basement, in a conforming location, and preserve as much as we can. When we went through the building, we talked about how we plan on preserving the windows and as much of the structure. The structure's in good shape, but the foundation is falling apart.
I think maybe just for Ms. Claire's benefit, the rest of you guys remember this too. There's another unique aspect of this, which is that when this property was subdivided into 3 lots, there was a condition put on by the planning board that you have to move this building. And subsequent to that, the owners at the time tried a couple of different things to demolish it and get it off the property. And the reason the planning board had said that was, you're not.
When was that?
The exact date, I had it the last time I was here. It's probably 30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
I wasn't on that planning board
So
then.
the planning board had.
I think our little attitudes about those kinds of decisions have probably changed in 30 years, but okay.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But there was this tension between the planning board saying you have to do this and the ARB saying, we're not letting you take that building down. And what's happened since then is nothing.
Yes.
Building's just sat there. And we now have a client who wants to do something with it, wants to preserve this building, but in a practical way. And one of the things that had been said to the prior owner who wanted to demo it is, you haven't shown that you can't repurpose this. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is repurpose this building, save it, take the facade that's really spectacular. I mean, if you guys got there, that was, it's really one
The
of the
whole
reasons
building
we
is
wanted
spectacular.
everyone to see it.
Yeah.
It can be, especially if it's tidied up a bit, it's going to be spectacular. So,
So-
what we're here for, like on this informal basis, is it's a concept that if there's a hard no from the board, it's not worth us going through the expense of getting these plans in the final form. We want to know if we have at least something from you saying, we will consider this application. And, not, we approve it, but we need something to justify that we can take it the next step and
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
It's a fair question for an important structure, so let's.
Yeah, I mean, according to the engineering report, it can be safely moved.
Yes.
The idea is to restore it to its original state of, the building itself. I see this as a win for everyone. We're saving a building that otherwise would just dissolve into the earth, as we've seen happen in other structures in the village. It's going to be repurposed and used for, the future. Like I said, and even the landscaping plan that you've shown really illustrates how the landscape itself will be part of the structure, the change. And even losing the landmark status, I know that's, even if that was lost, perhaps the owner doesn't care one way or the other. I mean, it's that there is certain degree of,
Its historic status wouldn't be lost.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think, it's just from my mind, the structure itself is being saved and restored. To me, that's top of mind. The fact that it's going to be moved from one angle to another, it's immaterial. It makes it part of its reuse. So that's where I stand.
So, John David, you took us through your history, and my history is the reverse of John's. I started off where he was, and now I'm where Sarah was, which is, you spoke about your primary purpose is to repurpose this building. When I was out on that site, it was clear to me, if you could repurpose it in a different direction, you can repurpose it in the same location. In the same location, maintains its historic presence, literally and figuratively. It also maintains its historic value. And we did speak at those meetings that there were options, which included restoring that building, repurposing it, whether that becomes the main building or the whatever it may be, the gym, the garage, and everything else. And you spoke about how the cars could come in the back and you could keep the facade in that beautiful courtyard and have a new structure that is dog-legged to, not dog-legged, but at right angles to that. And so in my mind, you can repurpose the building in that location, therefore it should stay in that location. And the applicant, as you've shared with me, John, and not that we look into people's pockets, but you surely indicated that he has the wherewithal and the interest in saving that building and repurposing it, as, and I'm repeating myself a bit, so I think he has the wherewithal and the interest and the desire. So maybe that's, the last part may be debatable, but there's surely a means of keeping it in that location, restoring it, repurposing it.
Do you feel you know enough to comment, or do you need more time?
I need to definitely see it.
Yeah, that's fair. Here's where I come at it after walking through it. There are two goals. First goal is to save the building. And either way, you're going to raise and save the building. The question is, when you look at the way the building is right now in its current configuration, the back of the building, which would then become the wall facing the ocean, you would have to remove a lot of original material back there to take advantage of the view that you're actually going for, and sunlight, which is the ocean. Whereas I feel if you left it in its current location and then built an L-shaped addition to it, and that new structure is the one that actually had more glass and took more advantage of the ocean, that we would be maintaining more of the original structure than we're going to have, because you're going to have to take a lot of that structure away if you turn it to take advantage of the view. And I think if you left it where it were and built a new structure that's attached to it in a dog-leg direction, I think you would actually maintain more of the original structure. It's a question that I have.
Should I read
And,
it?
you know, we speak about structure, but I think it's also the thematic nature of the building. It was a barn at an era when people had a dozen horses and carriages to boot. And turning it around and redoing it and making the changes to make it more suitable to a modern day primary residence, I think it's not going to look like a barn anymore. Yes, you may still have that, guess, breezeway opening, whatever it might be, but I think it would lose its character as a barn. And I think to the extent that it could stay in that place, be maintained to look like a barn as much as it can be, and then to build a new structure that's compatible and blends into it, I think, to me, that's the win-win.
I think adding a new structure to that building would destroy
No,
the
not-
integrity of the entire property itself. I mean, and the purpose, what they're talking about, no longer exists. It relative to the large estate, the home that was there that the horse barn served, that's disappeared. That's irrelevant.
That's true. Its intended purpose no longer exists.
Thank you.
Could I just add a few things as a reminder? It's almost 3 acres of property,
Mhm.
and it is 18 feet from the road and 15 feet from the side property line. If one were to add on to it in its existing location, in a conforming location, you would be adding on to what is now the west elevation. And while the back elevation is beautiful, I absolutely get it, when we add on to historic structures, they always ask that we do it to the back of the building, which would then be
Or you do it to a building in a way that
Well-
that is obvious and could be removed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Which I
you-
think
Exactly, so you would
demonstrated in
destroy
our
the integrity of the
elevations.
building by adding onto it.
I'm sorry.
You would destroy the integrity of the building or the history of the
important
building.
elevation
Right.
that currently faces west in a conforming location, we'd be adding onto it there with an approximately 4,000 square foot building. So then my question to you would be, you certainly wouldn't want me to replicate what's there now. Architecturally, how do you do that and not distract from?
We would
what is-
advise against it.
Well-
I mean,
It's a fabulous building, and if you put a building in front or alongside of it, architecturally, that's a real struggle.
Well, you're speaking a little bit differently than the conversation we had, or at least my takeaway, because if this is the existing barn,
Yes.
which is facing north-south,
Yes.
then, and then the beautiful gardens all back here, what you spoke about with me is a structure that would go this way, right angles, flush to the rear end of the existing structure, possibly connected by a breezeway, but not this. You weren't speaking about this to me. You were speaking about this.
If I may, it would be, you can see here's the building.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It would be in this area right here.
right. So that's not,
Again, you've got
that's
3
not
acres. It
adding
doesn't
on to the
have to
back
be.
of it. It's,
It's this elevation here that you'd be adding onto, which.
It doesn't have to be. You've got
No, it
3
doesn't have
acres.
to
You
be.
could be adding onto the corner and going closer to the southern border of that property. So that doesn't have to be the way that you would add on to it. I mean,
We have-
to be fair, I&P faced this problem at the Louvre. There are ways that you take modern structures and existing structures and make them work, and there are ways that you can take various historical periods and make them work if we think about it. So I think,
there you go, that subterranean level with a pyramid.
so, no, but I mean, I'm saying that you don't have to destroy this building. You can move farther down the property this way. It just shortens your backyard. But in your current existing non-conforming building that's so close to the street, it actually solves your problem because what would normally be a setback doesn't exist. But
I just find it hard to believe, regardless of the wherewithal of the property owner, that you're going to restore this house that's 18 feet off the property line and your window's overlooking bushes or whatever else is on the other side. It's not practical. And which means we risk loss of the building
This is it?
itself. And if everyone's fine with that, then great.
that
Then
one.
30 years from now, it'll dissolve into the earth and that'll be that.
So,
I
one,
don't-
that's
I-
not
I-
gonna happen because the
Yeah.
property owner has invested a lot of
Yeah.
money. The property owner, as John has shared with me, has a reputation for restoring buildings. The property owner, I sure would not want to be the subject of a suit by the village for a lack of maintaining the property.
And we all know
which-
where that ends up, nowhere.
Well, it means that he's gonna be stuck holding a multi-million-dollar property that's gonna be in litigation, and if that's the pursuit, the course he wants to pursue, then that's his druthers. But
Let's not,
let's not go there.
yeah, please.
The point is that
I'm
there are a lot of.
I'm operating from and this may be wrong. I'm operating from the viewpoint that we're going to restore it no matter what. The question is, are we restoring it in a north-south orientation or an east-west orientation? What makes it
We don't know that, though.
And then that's the assumption. This is what I'm operating under. So I will admit there are merits both ways, which I understand. But the question is, which is the right answer for this important piece of property and which does the least amount of damage to it is the question that I struggle with.
So why, let me take a step back. I talked about all the buildings in the past that have been moved,
Mhm.
very successful buildings, and probably a lot of people didn't know that they were ever moved. Why is this any different?
It's different in a number of ways. One, it's different in the times. You mentioned the Pelletreau building in 1890. You mentioned the Halsey House or something else in 1730. And those were moved for different reasons, different purposes, and again, at different times. And whether there were options or not, it's very different. This is talking about repurposing an existing building. There are options that don't require it to be moved. There may be, I'm not gonna, the writings on moving historic structures, or don't, if you don't have to. And you don't have to. So to me, it's that simple.
Alex, can you weigh in on that?
Are you talking about,
The conversation, didn't you have a conversation with Jennifer Betzworth?
I spoke to our,
We lost you.
I'm sorry.
Oop.
And we've still lost you.
You sound like Max Headroom.
No, are you?
Maybe shut off your video.
All right, I'm gonna.
Okay. Yeah, he's gone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Oh.
Nope.
For a second.
All right, I guess
This is too painful for 9:45. I think the answer is that Sarah's trying to set us up with someone from the state to talk about if we move historic, sort of the rules and considerations for moving historic buildings, to get a little more background on this, to be honest with you.
The bottom line also being that they can be relisted.
Yes, they can be,
Yeah.
but we need to understand the criteria for it. As I mean, I understand your plight, and I understand that, I understand both sides of the argument.
So where does it leave the applicant now? We've now had a second pre-submission conference.
Mhm.
The purpose of the pre-submission conference very obviously being, are we moving it or are we not moving it? We have 4 board members waiting on a 5th.
Yes, what I would say out of fairness for one of them is I think we need to give Jane some time to go down and walk it and to understand how she feels, to be able to give you that answer a little bit, because I think that would be fair, because we do have a new board member.
And I
think
moved my house.
You did.
I did, I moved my house, yes.
So
1898, Nathan Howell built it, and Old Hildreth House.
Nathan Hale?
No.
Nathan
Jeffrey, you pointed.
Howell.
Oh,
You
Howell.
both pointed
Wow,
at
that's
it,
really
if
fun.
I
I sort
may.
of get the answer here, Alice, but here's my
The
weird
Halsey
question for you.
Yeah.
Do
The
pre-submission
reason the
conferences
Halsey
have to be
house was
public?
rotated was to face the road.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Originally, it was a saw box
Yeah.
facing the sun, and it decided it was more important to put the front elevation facing the road. How different is that really than what we're discussing here?
I
It's
think on
not.
this particular, I think on this
I
particular
think a lot
property
goes
where
into
there are
discussion
options,
here,
yeah.
just because it's
Agreed.
one of the few last remaining. It is very important. It was part of a major structure. It's the fact that it's no longer needs a 14-horse barn also gives us the charm of what its original function was. Is why you were trying to preserve it, and also its architectural magnificence. So, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not an easy answer. I get it. So what I would suggest is
I'll go take a look.
Jane's going to drive by and take a look. It would be, I'm going to go back into the file and look at what you originally submitted. And then I think we know where Jeff stands. I think we know where John stands, and then we'll give you a real answer.
Are we agreeing to
I
have
can
another
provide-
pre-submission conference?
I think let's call it a pre-submission conversation
Cool.
so instead of a full presentation, because in that case we need to come back and talk to you instead of you talking to us. I think that's where
we all have the
Okay.
information we need at this
Yeah.
point.
Are we gonna have it on the end of the agenda again? Or are we gonna maybe?
I think to be fair, where Alice is going, and to be
Maybe.
fair to my friends, I think for the next meeting we can put it at the top of the agenda and do it quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we planning on hearing this on 123, or
Do
do
you
we
feel like you
want
can
to?
go get up to
Oh,
speed?
yeah,
and-
I can.
Yes, why don't we plan to do it on 123 as an agenda item at the top of the agenda on 123, since you've been kind to go to the end of the agenda tonight.
Would you like me to gain access to the whole site?
Yeah, that would be great.
And walk inside of it so that I can reach out to Alex and he'll coordinate with you?
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Is that possible this week?
And let me know.
I know.
You didn't say-
If it's possible this week,
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
Is there a
You've got a
day-
I was out of the
Yeah,
country
we have
last time
company.
we did this.
Yeah, you got a date.
Okay.
Okay,
It is
so we
magnificent.
don't
It's
wanna
magnificent.
wait
I
for a
would- yeah,
fifth board member.
I can't even.
I'm sorry?
You don't wanna wait for a 5th board member.
We
We
have
want-
a quorum, we can act. Without it, at that point, it's the applicant.
What I'm going to say is,
What-
we're going to do another pre-submission, because the 5th board member would come into play when we actually saw that. But I don't, since I don't have since I can't predict the future. And I
Quote me to me.
I don't have visibility on when that fifth board member is coming. I don't think it's also fair to hold the process up.
We
So,
can only vote on
Okay.
what's before us, right?
yeah. And to be fair, I did just quote you. All right, so I think that's fair. We'll put you at the top of the agenda. We'll do a site visit. We'll come back, and then we will, in the next conference, it's our turn to talk to you instead of you, because you've done a good job of explaining to us what you want. So let's just get everyone up to speed. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So with that, I believe this concludes. There are smaller versions, yes.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love one, yeah.
actually, that would be great. I believe that's our last piece of business, and that concludes the January 9th meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation for the Village of Southampton. Do I move we close the meeting? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.